G'day there guys, keeps wondering why I bear a striking resemblance to my mailman and not my father here, back at it again with another episode of r/AmiTheA. Now if you love today's episode like I love you, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, a like on the video, and enjoy today's content. Posted by user, Am I Not the A-Hole? Titled, Am I the A-Hole for letting my brother call me dad and refusing to tell him the ugly truth? I'm well aware that this story sounds extremely hard to believe and fake, and I'm aware that there will be many crap post comments below. Sorry, but this story is 100% true, and it's a hot topic of discussion in my family at the moment. I was born when my parents were both 19, and my only other brother, let's call him Josh, was born when they were 42. They divorced shortly after Josh was introduced to the world. He was 4 months old at the time, and they both wanted nothing to do with the child. At the time, I was 23, and I was living alone with my then girlfriend who was 21, now my wife, and I've done my best to convince at least one of them to take care of young Josh for his sake and the family's sake. But they refused adamantly and said that I should be taking custody of him instead. So I became legal guardian of my brother, and he has been living with us for the past 12 years, and things have been going really smooth for us. Josh, now almost 13, has been calling me dad, and my wife mum, and our 2 children, 4 female, 9 male, his siblings, and he has absolutely no idea about his real parents. And to be honest, I let all of that slide. He has no idea that I'm really his blood brother and not his father, and I'm starting to feel guilty and a little weird. Some of my uncles and aunts come to visit occasionally, and they are really disgusted at the fact that he calls me dad, and they're surprised I haven't told him the truth. They constantly messaged me, talk to me in private, and I cannot chat to them without this one particular topic rising up, badgering me to let him know already, but I refused. I discussed this with my wife, and she thought it would be wrong to tell him the truth because none of my parents wanted to take care of him, and I'm the only person in the world who gave him the father figure everyone deserves. I feel that he has the right to know what he is to me and what I truly am to him, but he has suffered enough already, and I just want things to continue how it is. Reddit, am I the a-hole? Would I be the a-hole if I let him know the truth? Update. About 70% of the comments are advising me to tell my son who I really am to him, and some are saying sooner than later. I've just got up to discuss this with my wife, and now after a lot of hesitation, we have decided that it's best the truth comes from us, and it has to come now. Right now. It's late for us, but we shall address this to him first thing this week, or even tomorrow. Thanks, guys. This is a good topic to discuss with a therapist or a counselor that specializes in adoption-related issues. My understanding is that it can be very distressing to a child or adult to abruptly find out that they've been adopted. Most things I have read indicate it's best to let the child know early on that they came from a different mummy's tummy, and then went to their mummy and daddy, or something along those lines. Your brother is past that point, but you are better off acting on this sooner than later. It's better that he find out from you and your wife. Otherwise, eventually someone is going to spill the beans. Yeah, talking to a therapist and counselor beforehand is excellent advice. Not the a-hole. Get a therapist, tell the kid, and act fast, or the relatives will undertake this mission themselves. That will be crap hits the fan moment. Not the a-hole. I would actually recommend getting more than one professional opinion. I don't think the first professional you speak with would necessarily give you the best advice, just the first advice. This is something that will impact all of your lives for the rest of your lives, and it should be addressed the right way. Also, if you decided not to tell him, you need to consider easily available DNA tests. Every year they are getting more and more advanced. If your son ever decided to get one in the future, even just to find out his lineage, it may be advanced enough to let him know that you aren't his biological dad. You said that he's suffered enough already, but has he? Being abandoned by your biological parents at 4 months old is rough, But he was also immediately taken in by a loving brother who has raised him with love in a nuclear family, complete with siblings. Maybe all of you were not set up for the easiest lives, but you stepped up. You are a loving family. Is this suffering that you speak of all before he was a year old? Yet he's always been loved by someone. You, your girlfriend, and future wife/mother. If this is the case, he hasn't suffered as much as you have. As far as he knows, he's been loved his whole life. And by the way, the older relatives that are griping to you about this may also be the same generation that would raise their daughter's illegitimate love child as their own, or allow their parents to do so and never tell them the truth. Not the a-hole. The a-holes are your nosy uncles and aunts. You've raised him since he was a baby. You are the only paternal, and your wife maternal, figure that he has known. But I think you'll shock him, if not turn his world upside down. But given your family dynamic, it very well might be that these uncles and aunts do it because they feel he should know. So it might be best if he heard it coming from you. He is not the a-hole for allowing him to call him dad, but he is mildly a-hole-ish for never ever telling Josh what his true parentage is. That can do a lot of damage to a kid mentally. Hopefully OP consults a child therapist and works with them to find the best way to tell Josh. Update. Am I the a-hole for letting my brother call me dad and refusing to tell him the ugly truth? Hey guys. So, many people wanted me to update on my previous post and wanted me to seek professional advice first before I take matters into my own hands. Apologies if it's long, that's what she said. I'll try to make it as detailed as possible while making this short. I went to my local therapist and told him about my situation and asked what to do. To keep it short, he said he's heard similar accounts from before and said it's best if I tell him as soon as possible for multiple reasons and to make sure that my bio children are present. For multiple reasons. I asked a few of my closest friends and the majority said more or less the same thing. My wife and I decided to sit the kids down and burst the big bubble. I asked my brother Josh to come closer, and I made sure I held him close and made him feel comfortable. He asked, "What's going on?" But I started by telling us how much we cared and loved for him, then told him everything about my parents. I put them in a bright light in hopes of a reunion, and who I am to him. Then quickly hugged him and my other two kids together, and told him that I love all my children the same, and nothing is going to change my love for him. He was shocked and asked if I was joking, but I was starting to cry a little at this point, so he knew that I was serious. My bio children were very surprised too. He was in tears and asked me why I didn't tell him sooner. I didn't know what to say and said, "I was just trying to protect you. I'm sorry, and I hope you can forgive me." But unfortunately and understandably, he left. He didn't talk to me as much again, understandably so. I continuously offered him to go out to the park and play a bit of football, because he loves that and all of his favorite things, but he just outright declined and even got a little angry sometimes for me even talking to him. I thought I messed up big time, until one day while my wife and two children were out doing shopping and we were alone, he came up to me and said, "I know you're not my real father, but I want to let you know you're the best dad in the whole world. Sorry for before." I hugged him, and things got pretty emotional. It would be a big lie to say my house is normal now, as it's far from that, but things are slowly, ever so slowly, starting to brighten up. There is no longer anything to hide anymore, and it feels like we are born again. Josh is a tough kid, and he handled this far better than I believed he would. I will be looking into therapy for him to help him recover, just in case it doesn't go well in the long run. I'll strive to continue to be a great dad to my kids, and a great dad to my brother/son. Thank you Reddit for pushing me towards this happy ending. Thank you for all the advice and judgments that I got, excluding the rude ones about my uncles and aunts. Eek. I love you all, and good night. Le More Just says, therapy so he can deal with the future. He's going to share this with friends who might not be kind is a great idea. And keep being the best dad possible. Love him, never let him be in doubt of that ever. Your wife is going to have to negotiate this on her end too, since he now knows she isn't his biological mother anymore. Lucky kid, your first son. Someday that will all be very clear to him. Thanks for the update. Came here to say this. He's going to have a lot of thoughts running through his head now and not know how to express them. I'm so glad the OP told Josh as a child for exactly this reason. He will have time now to adjust and work through his feelings. It would have been much harder on Josh if he found out in the turbulent teenage years, and I don't think he would have come around so quickly. It's telling that the first thing out of Josh's mouth was, "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" It's feeling like your life is a lie, rather than the situation that upsets people the most. Yeah, being a teenager is hard enough. Being a teenager with all of this on your shoulders, oof. That's going to be hard to deal with. He needs more than just family to speak to. Good on you, OP. Not just for coming clean, but for doing so thoughtfully and for stepping up like the adult your biological parents couldn't be. You're a good person. Posted by user CutStepFam. Titled, Am I the a-hole for not wanting a relationship with my stepmom and stepsister after my dad died? My parents got a divorce when I was 6, and I haven't seen my mum since cause she was abusive. My dad remarried when I was 8. My stepmom wasn't abusive, but we never clicked. She tried to be my new mum right off the bat, and I found it weird, and she didn't like how I wasn't open to the idea right away. She also had a daughter who's 1 year younger than me. We didn't hit it off either. Don't get me wrong, she's totally a fine person, but as kids, she was the typical brat, so I guess it made it hard for us to really bond as kids, I guess. Once I hit my teens, I had a rough patch of being rebellious and overall not a good person. My dad gave me space like I needed, but my stepmom didn't see it that way, and we fought a lot because of it. My stepsister was alright during our teen years, but she got more quiet and kept to herself, so we didn't really have any conflict. But me and my stepmom didn't hit it off, and once I turned 18, I moved out the first chance I got. I am now 24, and my dad sadly passed away with cancer. Though I didn't get along with my stepmom, I never stopped loving my dad, and we texted daily when I moved out. It was rough on me, and I do appreciate my stepmom helping me with the funeral, but that was a couple of months ago, and I haven't really talked to her since. My stepsister has invited me over for Christmas, and honestly I don't know if I want to go. Not because I don't like them, but because it's the same house that we grew up in, and it'll remind me too much of my dad, and I'm still grieving. I know my stepsister and stepmom are too, but god damn it sucks, cause I don't know. I just want to be left alone for some time to process it, cause it was only 3 months ago. Am I the a-hole if I don't show up to Christmas Day at my stepmom's place? Ignore the title, asked wrong question. Damn, I was wondering what happened to the Am I the a-hole there? No. I guess maybe, absolutely to them, you're an a-hole, but I think morally you're not an a-hole if you don't show up to the Christmas Day, lunch, whatever you guys are up to there. Celebration, I guess, Christmas Day celebration. We don't want to open up those wounds again if it's only been 3 months. That's a lot to deal with. Obviously, you can go if you are strong enough to do it, but it would be hard. It would be a hard day. It would be a happy day because it's Christmas, but it wouldn't be an easy day. The emotions would probably make it a sad day, that's for sure. So I'm gonna go with you're not the a-hole. You take your time, man. It can take a long time to heal from that. Large Rodent says, no a-holes here. It was nice of them to include you, but you by all means don't have to accept their offer. And I'm sorry for your loss. If you need an excuse and want to potentially keep the door open in case you change your mind in the future, you can say you are still grieving and would rather be alone. And OP says, I'll say that. I don't know what I want yet. I could one day feel like I miss and want them, but not right now. My dad's sister, my aunt, has been a great mother figure to me once my bio mum left me and my dad, So I call her my deaf immediate family. Dobby Dev thinks, I think that's a good idea. Make sure that they know you appreciate the invite, but you need space and time right now. If in-person interactions are too much for you, consider just keeping in touch lightly via sending cards for holidays and birthdays a few times a year. Like you said, one day you might want them in your life, even if you are never close with them. I would try to keep the doors open without guilting yourself into doing anything that you don't want to. No a-holes here. No a-holes here. I can't tell you who to consider your family, but keep in mind that these people presumably cared for you and supported you as a member of their family. You don't have to hit it off to be family. You just have to be there for each other when in need. And OP says, I guess if they ever were in a sticky situation, I would help them out, because she did raise me, even if we did fight a lot. This is a good way to think of it. You don't seem to have any real need to go non-contact, and it's good to leave the door open because as you get a bit older, you might find your feelings and the way you see things changes radically. Thank your stepsister for the invitation, but tell her that you've already got plans. That leaves you an opening if you ever want to take it. I would also keep in mind the possibility that since it sounds like your dad raised your stepsister, she probably misses him a lot too. So keeping a connection to you is a way to keep a connection to him. One day you might find it very comforting to have someone else around who misses him. So think about trying to build up a relationship with her separate to your stepmother. Definitely no a-holes here, by the way. And OP replies, yeah, I won't cut them out, but I don't have a need to really be close with them right now, because I'm still deciding and being around them reminds me of him. Lol. My stepsister was definitely just as close with my dad as I was. We didn't fight much, if at all, but one of the big things that we argued over was my dad, because I was a kid who thought that she was trying to steal him. Update: am I the a-hole for not wanting a relationship with my stepmom and stepsister after my dad died? I decided not to cut my stepfamily out of my life. My second question was, if I was the a-hole, if I go or not, and people say that it was up to me. So I went to my stepmom's place for Christmas. This was my first time with my stepmom and stepsister without my dad. It was super hard because I sat in the seat that he always sat on, and I just broke down crying. I am forever grateful for both my stepsister and stepmom, because we all just had a group hug on her couch while I bawled my eyes out. It ended, and we didn't open presents but just talked. We had brunch, and it went well, though I was holding in tears for the whole thing. This was the first time I could see they actually do care for me, and I care for them. They are my family, and I didn't stay the night because I definitely couldn't do that, but I left around 11 at night. This was the first time I ever felt like a full family unit, and not the bad kid who fought with my stepmom and just wasn't the nicest to my stepsister. I thank them so much for not holding a grudge when I went through my teen rebel phase. I hugged them both goodbye and I went home. I feel like me giving them a shot and going to my dad's place helped me realize that these are the people who have always been there for me. They were the ones who didn't give up on me when I was a troubled teen, and I loved them both for it. I text my stepsister almost daily now, even if it's just a good morning, or that I have the day off, and I call my stepmom a bit too now, but it goes a bit deeper, and I have started to really trust her like a mum. Thank you for all the advice, and to not cut them out, because it really did help me realize that we are family. We have been since I was 8, and I love and care for both of them very much. Also, apologies if you hear any loud noises in the background. Someone's literally using a flamethrower on a roof outside right now. I don't have an explanation for it. Anyway, Peter Mule says, "You sir/madam just grew up." Feels good, doesn't it? I got closer to my stepmother when I warmed her at a burial in the UP of Michigan while my father was mourning the loss of his parent. Put the past behind you. You want a good grandmother in your kids' lives when you have kids. I agree. I was a bad kid/brother growing up, and I regret that. I'm so glad neither of them held that against me and just saw it as a bratty teen. Once I have kids, I think having a good aunt and grandma will be awesome for them. Posted by user DurfBoy1262. Titled, Am I the A-hole? Parents bought younger sister with serious issues a $25,000 car for Christmas, while all I got was a damn phone case. I've been needing a car for a couple of years, and my parents promised one, but gave her one instead. In my family, there are 2 kids, my sister and I, and my parents. Christmas was coming up, and I've been wanting a car for about a year now because I've recently gotten my green Ps. Australian thing that you can get when you're older than 18. My parents have mentioned in the past the idea of me paying for half, and they'll cover the other half of a car under 10,000 Australian dollar dues. I can afford this as I've saved most of my money from the 2 jobs that I've kept since I was 14, so no biggie. I've also been relying on Mum to drive me to work for the past 4 years, so it was a smart move on their end rather than driving the 30 minutes each way every shift I got. My sister has just turned 17, which is when you can get your red Ps in Australia. She's never had a job and has no money saved whatsoever. I love her a lot, but she's made some questionable decisions towards her future lately. But that's a separate story. My parents haven't seemed to care as much as they probably should have about these things, and are acting like everything's normal and all good. With Christmas coming up at the time, and my birthday in early January, I thought this might be the time my parents get me that car that I've wanted for the last year, as they have mentioned this idea for the last couple of months. I'm obviously excited the week leading up to Christmas, wondering what type of car they've bought or what they're looking at. I wake up Christmas Day around 10 AM to the sound of my younger sister crying, but in a happy way. I'm excited for her, as she's obviously gotten something she's wanted. I walk downstairs, and no one's at the Christmas tree, but a present is there with my name sitting there. I'll figure that I'll come back to it after I find my parents. I check the front door, and it's wide open. I walk out to the driveway and see a brand new blue Hyundai i30, sitting on the driveway with a big ribbon on the front, which is around $25,000 dues. God, they don't stop advertising the bloody Hyundai in ads. Get the new premium range Hyundai. Shut up, you're not as good as Toyota, alright? My sister is at the side of it, crying with my parents' arms around her. I asked who it's for, and my parents tell me her. I probably could have handled this better, but I stormed back into the house, closed my door, and stayed in there for the rest of the day. Didn't go with my family to see everyone else for Christmas because of how annoyed I was. My parents asked me why I did that when they got home, so I asked them why they bought her a car before me, who's older, willing to pay half, had a job, goes to school, and has a stable plan for the future. They don't have an answer to that one, so they just stay quiet, and after a couple of minutes of awkward silence, they walk out. By this point, I'd forgotten about the present they left under the tree downstairs. So I walk down to open it, and it's a new iPhone case from eBay, something I had no use for. I can't get over what they've done. Am I the a-hole? Yes, screw your parents, what's wrong with them? She doesn't deserve a brand new Hyundai i30, now with the new sports package and top of the range, blah blah blah. They were going to give you a used one for half of 10 grand, yet they give her a new one? Screw this stupid favoritism. What has she done to earn it? I'm angry on your behalf, OP. Christmas is ruined. Screw these parents. Let's burn the house down. You know, we'll get money out of the insurance benefits from this one for sure. Just say the homeless man down the road did it, right? We'll go half on this one, right? I'll buy you a nice Tesla, OP. Let's go. Come on. Not the a-hole. Dear Midnight says, some people are going to comment based on the fact that a new car isn't a gift a teenager should expect, but that's not the issue here. The issue is that your parents showed considerable favoritism towards your sister, and you don't know why, and they won't tell you why. That's naturally very upsetting. Your reaction is totally understandable. So understandable that the fact they asked you why you were upset seems a bit strange. Not the a-hole. That's right, I couldn't really fathom what they'd done when I woke up, but when I thought about it more after storming off, I was in total shock at the clear favoritism and financial investment they put into this dropkick of a sister. She'll last a couple of months with it before it's a write-off, but they'll probably buy her another one because that's what they're like. I hope it changes soon, but man, it really sucks to feel so much less of a human than your sibling. Not the a-hole. My parents tried to be fair and equal, but my mum has favored my oldest brother to the point that it's obvious to the rest of the kids. He's not a horrible person, but is narcissistic and a walking dumpster fire. Years ago, I told her I wasn't going to bail him out financially when she was gone. Mum no longer has the funds to help him, he still asks, and I worry whether she will have enough to care for herself till the end of her life. If he had repaid all the money she's loaned him, she would be fine. My brother is getting ready to burn his life down to the ground again, and none of the rest of us are willing to help him out. Your parents are setting your sister up for a life of dependence, and not realizing there will be no one to help her when they are gone. They are breeding resentment in you toward her. You need to inform them that you will not be your sister's keeper. I'm currently facing this. My sister is 10 years older than me, has 9 kids, lives at home with mum, and has burned every rental place she's ever lived in. All of her bad choices my mother drags her out of, and at 36 she's still no better. She owns nothing, lost custody of all her kids, and depends on my mother for everything. My brother and I saw the way that she has always favored her, and how we were put on the back burners, and now we're the financially stable ones, with homes and marriages. I told my mother I'm no longer helping my sister or her dig her out of her mistakes. I'm out of thousands of dollars, and it's all for nothing. Tell your parents how they feel, set boundaries, and stick to them. You can't stay on a sinking ship with them when you can't get in a lifeboat. Update for post on situation where sister got $25,000 car for Christmas while I got a phone case. Update. So my birthday was the 11th of January. My parents were seeming nicer than usual the entire week beforehand, which might have been because they had time off work or they had a surprise. The outcome was somewhere in the middle of what I was expecting though, so on my birthday, they told me that they were sorry for buying my sister a car for Christmas when I deserved one and really needed it more than her. So they told me that they had given me $10,000 to be able to afford something that I'd really like and enjoy taking care of, and also drive to and from work, to school and uni, and everything else. The outcome couldn't really have been much better than this one, especially since they originally said they'd help me with $5,000 toward the car that I want. So I'm pretty happy with it. Not gonna complain anymore about the situation. I just hope they stop the favoritism and obvious extra love and support they give to my sister all the time. Thanks for all the support on the original post. I think we're at around 7.7 thousand upvotes as of now, which is pretty good. And thanks for all the messages with advice on the situation. Apple of my eye says, I'm so sorry that happened to you. What was their explanation for why they do something so boneheaded? They still haven't really touched on that part yet, so I'm not entirely sure. It's annoying, but I'm happy with the $10,000, and I'm gonna try and forget about it as much as I can. One possibility is that they show favoritism towards your sister because she seems to need more. You're the strong, independent, successful kid, while your sister has issues and is a bit of a mess. Obviously, that's still not fair or okay, but it may not be an issue of we love her more, so much as we think she needs extra help and motivation while you are good to go. Either way, I'm glad this turned out okay, and I hope that you get a car that you love. Thanks for the update. It's so true. My mum always said they gave attention to whoever needed it the most at any given time, but the other siblings translated that to a measurement of love. This was me and my youngest sister. She always needed a little bit more help than me, and my parents always just knew I was the more independent one. One time, when I was 18 in college, and they were still financially supporting me, I told them I really needed rain boots to go back and forth to class because the weather there sucked, and my shoes were getting soaked. They told me it was out of their budget and maybe later. The rain boots were definitely a bit nicer, around $50, but my parents have always done very well, and I definitely live much more frugally now, but a good pair I figure would last a while. 2 days later, my live-at-home sister recklessly hits a pole with her truck and, despite little damage, needed a new license plate that got ruined. So my mum took her to get a new license plate and then bought her crystal-encrusted license plate frames that cost over $100. Now, I have never ever flipped at my parents over monetary things and was always raised to be respectful, but when my sister told me, I remember being like, "You have got to be frickin' kidding me!" I had never seen my mum go so silent on the phone so quickly before realizing how it was perceived. She then sent me rain boots the next day, but my sister always got a helping hand before me. You need shoes? And get a no. And she gets a crystal-encrusted license plate. Is this real? How enraging! Also, apologies for the sudden change in energy in the storytelling. This is the second day I've been recording this post because I do that over 2 days sometimes when I get lazy, and the coffee is just hitting something different today. So I hope you enjoyed the energy on this one. Obviously, it doesn't happen all the time, but yeah, it was good fun. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Bye. Posted by user Southern Culture TW. Titled, "Am I the a-hole for telling my husband that his culture is garbage, and I won't compromise by incorporating it into our family life?" My husband and I live in the US Northeast, where I am from. John moved here for work several years ago from the deep south of the US where he grew up, raised with Christian holidays, but never attending church. Coincidentally, shortly before everything hit, John's parents and his childhood best friend Dan and his wife decided to move here as well. This past weekend was the first that us three couples have gathered together since any of us moved here. We had a distanced picnic at our house. John sat down 2 to 3 minutes after I did, as he was setting our kid into his pen in the backyard with us. Dan and my father-in-law immediately started to jokingly rip on him for being whipped and doing my job of parenting our child while he was supposed to be allowed to just catch up with the other 2 men. I was trying to politely deflect when it turned to how mean I was for not fixing him a plate and serving him before serving myself. If I thought a certain dish would run out before he got to it, or if he had asked me to, I of course would have. Dan and father-in-law continued to brag about how their families do it right, where they handle the outside chores while their wives handle the inside chores, including the care of Dan and his wife's 2 children. I think it's important to note here that both currently live in rented condos that by their nature do not have outdoor chores, and both their wives have always worked full-time, as I do. The whole day was kind of wrecked by that start, and I was frustrated when John left with Dan and father-in-law to go for a walk and left me to do all the cleanup alone while also looking after our kid. I expected John to apologize when he returned hours later, but instead he had a go at me for making him look bad in front of his friend and dad. He brought up how a traditional division of labor is a huge part of Southern culture, and how I was being disrespectful to his background by forcing Northern culture onto him and his family. He said he's been building up a lot of resentment the past few months that I make him do half the chores in childcare, since in his culture, women do the chores and hands-on childcare, and men do the fun parenting, the discipline, mow the grass, and bring in the cars for oil changes when needed. I was stunned, but honest, and I told him that Southern culture is garbage. It's bigotry, and I lived in John's home state for 8 years, and I saw how Southern hospitality is reserved only for those in your in-group. Deviate from the norm, be like queer, non-Christian, a POC, a liberal, a non-traditional woman, and they turn on you viciously. Does every single person act like that always? No, but it's the culture. John is livid and says that his culture is just as valid as that of other global regions, religions, and ethnic groups. So I am the bigot by not compromising with him here and incorporating aspects of his culture into our family life the way I would if his culture was Islamic or Asian or whatnot. I think John needs to go sit down for a bit. I don't know what's going on there. I can definitely see why people from that culture, as they like to call it, would think that she's an a-hole for not conforming to their beliefs, or conforming to what they think is the right thing to do in their mindset. But coming from my perspective, it's a very bad family dynamic there. It's not the right thing to do. And you would not be an a-hole for rebelling against it and asking for an equal split of chores and not to be looked down on as less than. In many ways, what? You're below me, you do this work, it's your job, it is not my job. That is to look at someone as less than, and it's unacceptable. So OP is not the a-hole, but I can see why people in that group would think that OP is an a-hole, but I believe they are wrong. That's my opinion. Not the a-hole. Screw that. John better knock that sexist crap off, or he'll be a single father soon. Right? If I recall, paying child support, hardly ever seeing your kids, and drinking yourself to death is also Southern culture. John has a lot to look forward to. He can be free of pesky Northern traditions like 50-50 custody very soon. I second what you said. Southern woman here, and I feel for you so much. I have a wonderful husband that would never expect any of that from me. He's also from the South, but I know for a lot of people, that's how it is. I would personally go on strike and do nothing until he apologized and agreed to couples therapy. I'm about to marry a Southern man I've been with for 7 years. We are each frustrated that the chores we learned as children followed traditional gender roles. I.e., he's frustrated that he doesn't know how to cook, and I'm frustrated that I don't know jack crap about lawn care. We are each working to figure these things out. We thank each other frequently for household contributions. He would never expect me to automatically fix a plate of food for him at a gathering or assume all childcare duties if we had kids. Because although his upraising left out a few things, he was raised right. OP's husband sounds like a spoiled brat who wasn't raised for the give and take of adulthood and marriage. To address the other side of the argument, I'm dating a South Asian man who has learned to cook since we got together because I made it very clear that not being able to chop onions with confidence did not excuse him from helping. I was not prepared to do all the physical and mental work of feeding us for him to do all the washing up. He now regularly sends me recipe ideas, and the giveaway to his mum that he had got a girlfriend was that he had asked for Indian recipes that he had grown up eating. If he refused to learn to cook or stuck to his parents' gender roles, I would have told him to go home and get arranged like his cousins. Posted by user ThrowRA titled, Am I the a-hole for telling a girl it's not my fault she's overweight? So, I'm underweight. I am a literal twig, relatable, and have fast metabolism too. It's not fun at all, cause I can eat a whole chicken and barely gain weight, and the just eat comments from people get on my nerves so much. There is this girl, let's call her S. I don't really know her a lot, but she's friends with someone in our friend group and in our chat. S is overweight and very self-conscious. She's also very overbearing and loves to argue over the little things. So we were video chatting, me, her, and a few other people. We were talking about something, and then S somehow starts talking about weight. S over here says that I'm a twig and asks if I diet because it's going overboard if I do. So, of course, I don't say anything, and then S continues and says she wishes she was like me because I have the easy life. At that point, my friends told her to stop, and she keeps going and asks me if I eat at all sometimes. What really made me mad was when she asked if I starved myself or if I had an eating disorder. I told her not everyone here gains weight easily, and that being skinny and healthy are not the same thing, in terms of health, and that it's not my fault she's overweight or has slow metabolism. That was a low blow, but I was so tired of her little comments. She started crying and said how she's so self-conscious of her weight and she was just complimenting me, then left the call. A few of my friends are on my side, but some say that I should not have attacked her in that subject. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Y'all, I'm a girl. Edit, skinny does not equal healthy, mostly. Also, I'm not trying to say fat shaming isn't bad. Honestly, it's worse than skinny shaming in my opinion, and I'm lucky that I can eat without getting lots of weight, but it's annoying sometimes. But I don't think eating disorders are complimenting. Calling someone a twig isn't either. Also, saying just eat doesn't work either. Like damn, never thought of that, hey? Don't say eat less either. Just don't skinny and fat shame in general, people. We are all teens, by the way, between 16 and 17 years old. Okay, with that extra information, 16 and 17, it's pretty much expected territory. It's not acceptable, but it's much more common than I've seen in adults. Jesus, the amount of bullying that I got for being a twig from the ages of 12 to now. My god, people are savage. I don't think it's particularly nice to say, but if you're being bullied about the exact same subject, in my books, I give you a free pass to fire back. You wouldn't be the a-hole if you fired back. I know an eye for an eye makes the world blind, but when it comes to this subject, I don't care. Go ahead, do what you want, fire back. If they're gonna attack you for your weight, you attack theirs, and you show them how it feels. Because then they can understand how it feels to be attacked for your weight, because they're excusing their behavior, it sounds like. So yeah, OP is not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. She was being offensive, you only faced it with facts. Yeah, she was really just asking for pushback. She shouldn't be mad that she got it. Her comments were not compliments either. Right, WTF? You look like you have an ED is not a compliment at all, and neither is calling someone a twig. Yeah, I don't understand why people crucified others for fat shaming, but find it acceptable to slim shame or skinny shame. In both cases, they're criticizing and shaming your body, and not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. She brought it up and was warned to stop. Anything beyond that is her own damn fault. As you've said, skinny doesn't equal healthy, and she has no business trying to judge you on your size. Not the a-hole, she was insulting you and then got mad that you said something back. She should have thought through her words better. I'd say everyone sucks here, honestly. She sucks because you shouldn't talk about anyone else's weight unprovoked, and she was saying crappy things, although I can see as someone who is also overweight how she could think what she was saying was a compliment. Though that could just be me trying to give the benefit of the doubt. It's still her projecting her weight-related self-image issues onto you and is completely tone-deaf, insulting, and self-centered. I say you suck also, although much less than S, because no one likes being called overweight despite how true. There is definitely a stigma associated with it, and overweight people already know that they are overweight. In the same way you don't appreciate your weight being talked about, it was a low blow. Posted by user ProfessionalTax743, titled, "Would I be the a-hole for not attending my best friend's gay wedding because of my inheritance?" Not one of these ones again. Long story short, and I think I screwed myself here. My 29 male best friend, 28 male, is getting married at the start of October at a smaller gathering at a family friend's banquet hall catered by his family. He is, obviously, gay. My mum is extremely homophobic and in poor health at 65, diabetes, obesity, family history of heart conditions, and smoking. I'd be very surprised if she made it another election cycle, 4 years. She never liked my friend, but let it go once I became engaged to my current fiancé, probably because she thought I might be gay. I told her I was going to not only be at the wedding, but the best man at the wedding, and she flipped out. My dad passed away about 5 years ago and provided very well for us. Annuity, stocks, and 2 property houses rented out, and my mum knew the power that has. Even split with 2 other brothers, I will inherit well over 5 million. Her words were, if you go to that F-word wedding, we'll see how much you get. Unfortunately, I told her the date before this point, and she'll know where to expect me on that day. I've tried to get her to be reasonable, but she isn't budging. She's been a bitter, hateful woman for 60 plus years, and she's going out a bitter, hateful woman. I told my best friend, and he is furious with me, as is my fiancé. We are very well off. I'm a pharmacist who hasn't felt the effects of the pandemic at all, to be honest, and she's a human resource associate. We are extremely comfortable and have never stressed over money, but we're not millionaires, which we could be. I asked my best friend if he would consider a long engagement. Him and his fiancée proposed and planned the wedding inside a year, and my mum is not going to last much longer, but he isn't concerned beyond, "You are choosing your homophobic mum over me." That line hurt me, and I'm just choosing her money right now, but even that doesn't seem like it's worth it. My fiancée has said she knows it's a lot of money, but she says that we have 6 figures in the bank already, and my job has no threat of downsizing or phasing out. Still, I would be set for life and take a 10+ start on my retirement, and he is not willing to find a compromise at all. Not that he should have to at the end of the day. Would I be the a-hole if I don't attend my best friend's gay wedding? Edit 1. Honestly, the more I typed out my question, the more obvious it was. I couldn't even spin it to make me not sound like the a-hole. Yeah, for some reason this is voted as everyone sucks here, but who's the other party in this one exactly? I mean, he is an a-hole for doing it, but it's completely up to him if he wants to sacrifice all of these relationships with people for $5 million. A lot of people would do that. Genuinely, a lot of people would do that. And that's the unfortunate reality of life. A lot of people would accept their judgments and they'd happily walk out with $5 million, possibly breaking a marriage and breaking a lifelong friendship. Oh god. So yeah, I do think he's the a-hole. I think that the mother is the a-hole also for holding those views. Nothing much else to say, no one else sucks besides those two. Forget about the wedding for a minute. Your mum has just declared the terms of play until she dies. The game will be that she controls your every move, you comply and do not object, and in exchange you might be wealthy at some undetermined future time. She could die tomorrow, or she could live another 25 years. The really nasty ones seem to hang on much longer than seems reasonable, and she might, or might not, depending on her whim, bequeath you $5 million. That is, if she hasn't spent it, lost it in a scam, updated her will improperly, or dozens of other reasons beyond your control that the money may or may not even be there. Are you willing to accept the terms of the game for an opportunity to inherit? Sounds like an unappealing way to live for years to me, but we all have to make our own choices. Everyone sucks here, your mum for proposing the game, and you for playing it. Yes, this at OP. Who's to say your mum won't cut you out for another reason in the future, and then all you have is a broken long-term friendship and your 6-figure bank account to cry into? Quit counting on money that you aren't guaranteed, and be a better friend. You're the a-hole. Yes, if you're going to make it a financial transaction, seriously force it into a trust on the condition that you don't attend that event. Don't leave it to chance. I don't have enough knowledge to be informed about practical solutions here, but I also wonder if OP's brothers or their spouses are in his corner here, or are at least resenting being bound by similar constraints. Could they all discuss this? Perhaps come to some contingency agreements about dividing the inheritance? Hell, is Mummy even mentally competent enough to change her will if her kids all pull whatever evidence they have that indicates that she isn't? From a moral standpoint, I'd have far fewer reservations about conspiring against this old creep than I would about leaving my best friend at the altar. There's a lot of people that are going to pretend they have the moral fortitude to turn down $5 million and call you an a-hole. They are being dishonest. You're just going to do whatever feels right for yourself here. There is no right answer. Your mum is the a-hole. Edits. I just want to say not the a-hole. I also want to add that your gay friend is an a-hole too. My friends would all tell me to take the money. We just did a poll in our group message. 7 out of 7 people expect 7 out of 7 people to take the money every time. There are a lot of morals I'd compromise for $5 million. Hell, for $500,000. That doesn't mean I wouldn't be an a-hole for doing so. This right here, it's kind of bananas people are telling him to walk away from it. So easy to say when it's not your money. Still an a-hole, but I really can't blame you for it. You may lose your friendship over this. It's not like money is some kind of frivolity, especially during a complete economic collapse. If OP doesn't need it, and he may, who knows how secure his job really is, who knows when an illness might bury the family in medical bills, his best friend very well might. And disowned gay teens who have been victimized by nasty old freaks like OP's mother definitely do. If OP is looking for a way to have his morality cake and eat his inheritance too, there is your solution. Not the a-hole. If I told my best friend who was gay and was my best man that I was missing his wedding because of a potential $5 million, he would wish me luck and call me after the honeymoon. If you can somehow actually afford to pass on $5 million, then things change. But if your net worth is under $10 million, my back of the envelope math for never work again money, this seems totally understandable. Right? I feel like my friends would be pretty understanding. I'd send a life-sized cardboard cutout of myself, then maybe pay off their mortgage, lol. Still sucks bending to the will of this evil tramp. Posted by user Am I the A-hole No Cheese? Titled, Am I the A-hole for forcing my boyfriend to do the dishes? I'm lactose intolerant. Every time I make tacos, my boyfriend always makes jokes about how I'm disrespecting Mexican culture by not having cheese in my tacos. I've told him multiple times I'm not going to give myself the craps just to make him feel better about my friggin' tacos. He's not even Mexican, he's white. This came to a head last night when we were having tacos again, and I got up to the bathroom, and when I came back, I noticed my taco looked tampered with. I go to inspect, and lo and behold, there's fudging cheese buried beneath the other ingredients. I told my boyfriend he was a raging douche canoe, and I went to bed, leaving him to do the cleanup. I still haven't spoken to him all morning, and he's complaining about how I forced him to do the dishes, because normally I do them. Am I the a-hole here? I don't even know if he would think you're an a-hole. I think he knows exactly what he did. I think your actions are justified there. I think it was, a nice way to go about it. No more, no less was a nice way to deal with the situation. It didn't make anyone too angry. I don't think you're an a-hole for doing what you did. It was nice and controlled, OP. You don't want to have to be forced to eat something that's going to give you flatulence or anything else, and I don't blame you. So you are definitely not the a-hole. Not the a-hole, but is this really the relationship you want to be in? Do Mexicans use cheese in tacos? I thought that was a Western tradition. He tried to make you ill. He should be glad you aren't forcing him to clean the toilet after you accidentally ate cheese. It is brought to my attention that Mexico is geographically in the West. Sorry to anybody that felt I tried to move them. OP says, I didn't eat any, fortunately. I saw it before taking a bite. OP, he literally tried to poison you. He put an additive into your food that he knew would cause you physical distress. Who cares about the dishes? Although amazing how easily he made himself the victim here. The real question is, how much do you value your physical safety versus how much you value this relationship? If I were you, I'd be out of there. Or kick him out. Today. Putting me in physical distress and danger is a red line for me in a relationship, and I hope you respect yourself enough to take a really hard look at whether or not this relationship is in your best interests. So much this, OP. You are not the a-hole. Your boyfriend is an incredibly irresponsible, stupid, and dangerous person to have in your life. He intentionally, as other commenters have said, poisoned your food. You need to get away from this guy quickly as possible. Not the a-hole. Your boyfriend is an a-hole and an idiot to boot. Not all tacos in Mexico are eaten with cheese. Arguably, the majority do not have cheese. I'm Mexican, and no, Mexican tacos don't have cheese. Quesadillas are kind of tacos with cheese. Just mentioning quesadillas makes me want quesadillas. Haven't made them in too long. I've told him this before, and he doesn't listen. If, And only if you would like to have cheese with your tacos, it is worth knowing that old cheeses generally have very little lactose in them because the lactose has been converted to lactic acid during the aging. A hack to tell how much lactose is in cheese is to go to the nutrition facts table and look at sugar. The sugar in cheese is lactose, so if the number is 0, there will be little to no lactose in the cheese. Your boyfriend tried to poison you. Why are you still with him? Today I learned how to figure out lactose content. I've realized that better cheese doesn't bother me much, and fake cheese will make me erupt like I was Jupiter's moon Io. Posted by user ImageniusMorno, titled, "Am I the a-hole for rejecting the role of cool aunt because it was really more like unpaid babysitter?" My sister and I have always been very different. Growing up, she was your stereotypical nerdy geeky girl, very into sci-fi fantasy, video games, etc. She bonded a lot with my parents over it because they are the same. I always felt kind of different from the others because I'm not very geeky, and while I did my best to fit in, Star Wars movies, Harry Potter, etc., I took my first opportunity to leave the area for school. I went to FIT and got a degree in fashion design. I always loved making my own clothes. To frame it one way, I made my prom dress from my own pattern, and my family smiled politely. My sister threw together a Harry Potter costume, and the picture is hanging on the walls. Well, sis had kids a while back. I sent polite gifts, including a quilt to be handed down. Sis received them warmly, but I found out she doesn't use the quilt because the room is Harry Potter themed. Due to the pandemic, I ended up moving back closer to home into a condo that I'd been renting out. The tenants were not evicted or anything. Once sis found out, she got really excited and started making all kinds of plans. I was thrilled because I thought she wanted to spend more time with me. Except the plans were like, I take the kids to the zoo, I take them to the park, I take them for ice cream, the aquarium, etc. So sis can have some time to herself and relax, play video games, etc. I inquired about when she and I would spend any time together, and she actually said, "It's not like we have anything in common we can do together." I was really hurt by this, and declined her requests from me to basically babysit her kids. She asked me why I didn't want to be the cool aunt, and this is where I think I'm the a-hole. I said, I don't know. It's not like I have anything in common with them that we can do together. Sounds like you want an unpaid babysitter. She was shocked and went stomping to mum and dad, who immediately took her side and told me that I should be thankful to spend time with the kids. I said why? It's not like anyone in the family has ever made it a point to spend time with me doing something I'd enjoy. She told me that if I'd tried harder to be more like the rest of them, instead of chasing popularity and doing my nails, maybe I would have more in common with them. I'm lost now, because on the one hand, I don't think I was wrong to decline being a free sitter for my sister, but maybe my mum is right and I've been a crappy member of the family because I just couldn't get into the Star Wars and all that. Edit. I just want to chime in and say that Star Wars and Harry Potter are not the only geeky and nerdy things that they like. They were just the things that popped into my head. I remember back when we were in high school, my sister laughed in my face because I didn't enjoy the Sabriel books, and she told me they were too advanced for me to understand. She found me reading the California Diaries, an offshoot of Babysitter's Club books, and laughed in my face again because they were dumb books for vapid little girls. Edit 2. One thing I'm curious about is why so many people are telling me, first thing in their comments, that they are geeky and nerdy. Why do you think that makes things different? I don't think OP is the a-hole in this situation. I feel like the parents and the sister are legitimately gaslighting her for this one, and they know what the sister's doing, the sister knows what she's doing, she doesn't actually want to spend time with OP. And in a few ways that is heartbreaking, and I feel for you. I wouldn't want to be used like that, especially when they make clear that they don't actually value your time or want to spend time with you. That's really upsetting, so you're not the a-hole for this one, OP, the rest of them are. Not the a-hole, never the a-hole. Your sister is an entitled brat, and your parents clearly play favorites. Just because you're into fashion doesn't mean you chase popularity. In the same way that being a geek doesn't stop you from being a brat who craves attention from mummy and daddy. You stood your ground and voiced your emotions about how you felt about how they treated you, and their response was, "We didn't try and make an effort with you because your interests didn't match up with ours." Not only does your sister need a reality check, but your parents need to take a good hard look at themselves. The whole chasing popularity comment just makes me think that OP's parents never got out of high school and dragged their high school BS on OP. I read it as the toxic, non-geek things a conformist, sheeple, and bullies, real people aren't afraid to admit they love sci-fi and fantasy and comic books, which, I respect my husband's comic book collection. Hell, I personally catalogued and photographed it for insurance. But I'm not a vapid Barbie girl if I hated Game of Thrones. I did. Or don't know all of the X-Men. I don't. The parents are participating in some toxic geekdom reverse bullying bullcrap and are exactly the sort of a-holes I dread running into at conventions. Not the a-hole, at least your interests turned into a paying job. It's almost like people individually have a wide range of interests, and their interests and hobbies don't make them less human. And being open to hanging out with people who aren't interested in exactly what you are makes you a better person. Posted by user Sassiscus titled, "Am I the a-hole for grounding my daughter for calling out how my girlfriend talks to waiters?" I've, 47, recently begun dating a woman, 33, about a month ago. And this week, I arranged for her to meet my daughter, who's 12. We end up going to a restaurant for lunch. My girlfriend does not particularly like interacting with waiters or waitresses, especially those at more casual dining places. She has had bad experiences with them, and feels like they often judge her and other customers on her and their food choices. She's also sensitive to entitled attitudes on their part. So whenever she goes out with friends or with me, she prefers that someone else place her order for her and does the rest of the interactions with the waitstaff, like handing them the paid bill, asking for utensils and refills, etc. So when it comes time to order, and the waitress is asking my girlfriend what she wants, my girlfriend looks directly at me and I order for her. My girlfriend wants another fork in the middle of our meal, and she asks me to ask the waitress for it. This triggers my daughter because the waitress happened to be within earshot, and my daughter starts asking my girlfriend why she refuses to acknowledge waitstaff. I tell my daughter to be polite, but she continues on and says that when the busboy came, she could have at least thanked him for taking her soup dish away. She then says, "They will all freaking human beings," whatever that means, and it came out louder than we all expected, and diners nearby stared at us. We ended up cutting our meal short because my girlfriend was obviously offended, and I drive home with my daughter. I told her that this was no way to treat a woman who I love and who I want to be part of our lives. I end up grounding her for embarrassing my girlfriend in front of everyone. Am I the a-hole? My daughter is growing up and needs to learn that not everybody approaches situations how she does, and that it's ignorant to just write them off as rude, or even worse, to raise an issue with them about it. Also, I have to add that she claims my girlfriend is so rude and idolizes her late mother, who would regularly tip 30%, yet she is the one who raised her voice in public. Yeah, as someone that worked at McDonald's for quite a long time, I don't agree with her attitude there. It is very rude to look on them like that. I don't feel like the way she rationalized it is a good way to go about this. Completely ignoring someone's existence just because you feel like they're judging you. It's, no, sorry, it doesn't track with me. I don't agree with that. So she's the a-hole, OP is the a-hole for enabling it. Redoubtable South says, "You're the a-hole. A 12-year-old has better manners than your girlfriend, but you're punishing her for it. Your girlfriend needs to grow the hell up or quit eating at restaurants with waitstaff. And if that's how your girlfriend treats waitstaff, I'd be concerned about how she might treat your daughter, other family members, or your friends when you are not around. The way people treat those who are lower than them, like waiters, says a lot about who they are. OP, you're the a-hole for sure. If I went out with someone and witnessed this behavior, and then heard your explanation for why she behaved that way, I would probably never see either of you again. The girlfriend sounds crazy. No one making $3 an hour waiting tables has an entitled attitude or cares about her and her food choices. If she doesn't want the help interacting with her, she should get contactless delivery at home instead of inflicting her Karen-ness on the public. The daughter is smart to call out that BS. I hope for the daughter's sake, this 1-month relationship doesn't go much further, because we are going to see a lot of Am I the A-hole posts from her every single time that she fights with the terrible girlfriend. You're the a-hole for grounding her. She has a valid point. Remember that people can't read minds, and so your girlfriend's behavior can come off as snobbery, even if unintended on her part. Funny how you're okay with your girlfriend being sensitive to entitled attitudes, and yet dismissive of your daughter's feelings, especially since your girlfriend is a recent thing, and should not take absolute priority over your daughter. Posted by user ForGluip, titled, Am I the a-hole for banning my father from my home because he banned me from his when I was younger? When I was 15, my father married a woman I just could not get along with, and there was a lot of friction with her daughter as well. Eventually, the fighting got so bad that my father told me that he would exercise his custody at my grandparents' house instead, effectively banning me from his own home. I said thanks but no thanks, and stopped seeing him as per the custody schedule. He did make attempts to fix our relationship, but I wasn't interested. We would see each other at family events, and we were nice enough to each other, but that's it. It's now 13 years later, and I'm married with a 1-year-old. His wife has passed away in an accident a few years ago, and I'm assuming that he's lonely now. But I don't really want to be his backup plan. He comes to see my son once a month, and I only see him at the park and don't engage with him myself. Last December, he point-blank asked me why I never invited him to my home for dinner, or why I never accepted his invites to visit him. I told him the truth. He was very upset, but it is the reality of the situation. Was I the a-hole? No, the way he treated you in the past was unacceptable on his behalf. He shouldn't have done that to you. Same situation as last. I don't think that he should have put his wife over you, especially at the age of 15. There's going to be a lot of friction there. You don't just ban a 15-year-old that's struggling with themselves and then struggling with their environment. That's just actively damaging to the 15-year-old, and it's a disgusting act to do. There is room for forgiveness in the future, obviously, but, I don't think I can blame her for continuing to have that distance from her father. If it was bad enough to do that much damage, he deserves to know the consequences of it, as unfair as some people might see it to be. So I don't think they're the a-hole for doing that. I think they're still hurting from the rejection of their father. That's a really mean thing to do, so not the a-hole. People keep expecting us sons and daughters to be the bigger person and try to fix the screw-ups our parents did to our relations, which is something I do not believe is fair. Your actions are direct consequences of his, and it's his problem to understand and make peace with that. I keep seeing this, that some parents have expectations of the children that they would never deliver as parents. I know raising a child is difficult, but when you make decisions that can last a lifetime, maybe you would think twice about it. Damn. Thank you for the reply text to my crappy mother who lives a mile from me but didn't invite me to her wedding. Ooh. It infuriates me to keep reading these stories of parents who choose their spouse over their kids. WTF is wrong with these people? I'm angry for every kid that has to go through something like that. Thank you for caring and caring more than her. They have been dating for 20 years and started when he was married to someone else, and he ended up divorcing that chick recently after living rent-free from my mum for many years. She had been an alcoholic for those 20 years, and he doesn't believe in alcoholism. He justified her driving drunk to work, and I stopped talking to her this year after not going to treatment. She decides to have a wedding instead, on my brother's birthday. No family attended. Codependency is a tramp, and I think he just finally married her to take over the house when she offs herself from her addictions. Ooh, that got heavy fast. Not the a-hole. He chose his wife and stepdaughter over you. He deserves to know how that hurt you. I don't even care if the dad feels lonely. Imagine how OP felt when the dad chose his new family over him. Oh my god, a grown-ass adult feels a little lonely. But kicking a 15-year-old kid out of his own house though? Oh, that's fine. The kid needs to forgive him. OP's even trying to facilitate a relationship between his son and his son's grandfather. But oh no, he's a little distant personally and won't invite him to his house because of something the father did. What an a-hole move. Maybe the father should actually think about this instead of reflexively getting upset, lol. Everyone sucks here, but mostly you. It seems like you played your fair part in making your home life horrible for everyone, which you have never acknowledged. It sucks you had to go live with your grandparents, but it seems like it wound up being the best solution for everyone, and sort of like you didn't leave him with any choice. You don't negotiate with terrorists, even when that terrorist is your own kid. He would have hated and resented you if you had imploded his marriage, either by driving his spouse away or convincing him to leave her for the benefit of his caustically angry, unpleasant teen, just as you would hate and resent someone who did that to your current marriage. You are the one who blocked his attempts to regularly see you as a teen and refused his multiple attempts to reconcile. If you hadn't, it's likely in a few months or so you would have been invited over again and possibly worked your way up to moving back in. This feels like a problem of your own making, and you really need to go to therapy. Posted by user Violin Bow Nephew. Titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay to repair my girlfriend's violin bow after my nephews broke it? Throw away because I don't want this tied to my main. My girlfriend is a talented musician. She plays multiple instruments and has an angelic voice. She has dedicated her life to this excruciating task, and it's truly paid off. My sister has 2 boys, a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. They are extremely active and love running around, which usually ends in a mess being created. The boys adore my girlfriend. They love everything about her, which I find very cute. The boys came to stay with me for a day when my sister and my girlfriend were out of town, separately. The 10-year-old is learning the violin, and he insists on playing like my girlfriend. I thought it would be harmless to bring out my girlfriend's violin for him to play something, and to calm his hyperactive self down. Granted, it was slightly too big for him, but he was plucking the strings and seemed to know how to use it. I had to dash out for an emergency, but I was just next door, and when I returned after an hour, her bow was almost completely frayed. I took the violin away and scolded both of them. My girlfriend came back home to a frayed bow. She was understandably upset, and to my surprise, even more upset when I told her the entire story. She asked me if I would like to pay for the repair or replacement of the violin bow. I thought that my sister would have to chalk up the fees, because it was her kids, my nephews, who caused the damage in the first place. My girlfriend disagreed and defended my sister not paying the fees when I prompted her to. I keep refusing every time she asks. It's not stopping her from practicing either. She has a spare bow. Am I really the a-hole? I shouldn't be faulted for someone else's kid's problem. Edits. Apparently there were way more problems with the bow than just frayed hairs, so I'm paying for the replacement of the bow. The bow cost several $1,000s and was more expensive than I ever imagined. I also re-haired her spare bow and discovered that instruments are fudging expensive. You could literally buy a second-hand car with that cash. She bought a separate place for her small instruments, flute, violin, and guitar, and locks it when she's done practicing. Well, I guess going by that, OP realizes they are the a-hole for doing so much damage to such expensive instruments. If someone has dedicated their life to the craft and mastering it, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they're going to drop an insane amount of money to fully pursue that to the highest quality possible. And I think OP just was unaware and ignorant of the fact, which isn't an excuse, just kind of makes their behavior worse, but it's good that they fixed the problem when they found out the reality of the situation, which is commendable, but doesn't make them not the a-hole. You're the a-hole. Holy crap. If someone took out my instrument and handed it to a 10-year-old and then left them alone for an hour with it, they would never be allowed back in my home again. Shame on you for failing to see the value of the instrument, shame on you for giving it to a child, and shame on you for refusing to pay for it. Edit. I'm extremely glad OP has since been forcefully educated on the true value of her instruments and instruments in general. I know it's going to blow a hole in your pocket to replace everything, but you've done the right thing. Going forward, please don't ever touch or use an instrument without asking its owner. Holy hell! I've been playing music since I was 7. First trumpet and then bass guitar. I am the proud owner of an early 70s Shilk trumpet and a 1978 Rickenbacker 4001 that I bought with my paper route money when I was 14. Our instruments, particularly when they are somewhat special, are a part of our souls. You just do not touch them. You're the a-hole. Violinist here, you'd be out on your ass. Do you even comprehend how much practice it takes to get used to the quirks of your instrument and bow? Violins aren't made at the factory. Mine is from the 1700s, and I've never been able to afford a similar quality bow. Oh my god. And you can't replace them, especially from that time period. The world was in a little ice age then, and the trees grew differently. I'm sure someone who actually knows a bit more about the subject will be along shortly. For the record, idiot boyfriends who think that expensive instruments are simply objects with which hyperactive children can be mollified? Yeah, those boyfriends can be very easily replaced. Posted by user Throwaway Family Trip 2. Titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to take my stepsister along on a family trip that my fiancé is paying for? I've changed some details because I'm pretty sure my stepsister uses Reddit. When I was 11, my mum married my stepdad, who also had a 13-year-old daughter. For the purpose of this post, we'll call her Emma. Me and Emma have never gotten along. When I was 22, I finally went no contact with her. The straw that finally broke the camel's back was when she gleefully announced she was pregnant with my then fiancé on Christmas Day. That was honestly one of the worst times in my life, and it took me a really long time to recover from the betrayal. Emma ended up marrying my ex, and they have a little boy together. I'm currently 28 and engaged to a wonderful man who is a lot better than my ex ever was. Emma and my ex ended up divorcing after 3 years, and she now lives with my mum and stepdad. My fiancé has family in Italy who he'd like me and my parents to meet before the wedding. The original plan was to go this summer, but obviously with the pandemic, our plans got put on hold. I was discussing the plans to reschedule for next year with my mom recently, and she asked me if I was going to invite Emma and her son along. I told her I wasn't, and she asked me to reconsider because she didn't think my stepdad would come otherwise. That's fine with me. It's really my mum and dad that my fiancé wants to introduce to his family. She argued Emma has matured since becoming a mum and getting divorced, and that she wants to attempt to have a relationship with me. When I told her I wasn't interested, she said I was putting her in an awkward position, and that I was taking my half-sister and stepbrother on my dad's side, so she felt like I was favoring him. My stepbrother is literally the person who introduced me to my fiancé, and my half-sister and I are close. She also said it's unfair because Emma could never afford a trip like this on her own, and my nephew would be the one to miss out, on top of bonding time with his cousins. She asked me to reconsider before she left, and has only replied to my texts to ask if I'd changed my mind. I'm starting to feel guilty because I know mine and Emma's dislike for one another has put a massive strain on my mum's marriage, and it's not fair to her. My mum's sisters have also called me to ask me to change my mind. I'm starting to worry my mum might not come either, with how cold that she's being. My full sister has also reached out and told me that Emma had been going to therapy and has realized what she did was horrible and that I should consider forgiving her because she was going through a lot of her own issues. depression, low self-esteem at the time, and that my ex also made her suffer a lot too. Realistically, if she came on the trip, I could just avoid her the entire time, but I also don't know if she's changed or if she'll start up her old tricks again. My fiancé is also the one paying for the trip, and I selfishly don't want him to pay for her. Am I the a-hole? Edits. I've read all of the comments, but I have around 900 plus unread messages, so I thought I'd just answer some of the questions being asked repeatedly here. 1. Did Emma ever apologize? No. 2. Why are you taking your entire family to Italy? My fiancé wants to give our families the chance to get to know one another, and he hopes that they'll be as close as his parents' families are. Also, he thinks I'll be more comfortable with my family there as well, instead of being thrown in the deep end with all of his family in a foreign country. Also, our parents have already met. This is to meet his extended family, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. 3. Does your fiancé know, and what's his opinion? He knows. I moved in with my dad shortly after everything went down, and my fiancé was already close friends with my stepbrother, so he used to hang out at my dad's place a lot, so he saw the whole aftermath. He thinks the request is ridiculous, but he said that he won't make the decision for me. My mum hasn't actually asked him, despite threatening to, but he has made it clear he will make sure that she knows he doesn't want my stepsister there. 4. Why won't and can't your mum just come on her own? This is just an assumption, but I think she doesn't want to face my dad alone. They haven't had the best relationship after everything that went down. 5. Can't your stepdad and mum pay for her, and you just don't invite her to the family events? In theory, yes, but we'll be staying with my fiancé's family, so this may raise uncomfortable questions. If they want to get her a hotel and just not interact with my fiancé's family the whole time, that's fine with me. Also, thank you for the awards. LeeKind92 says, not the a-hole. Why should your fiancé pay for her trip if you don't want her there in the first place? Maybe someone should consider your feelings, not just hers. This right here seems like everyone else is more concerned about how she's feeling. Like, it's so hard on her realizing what an a-hole she was to you, so forgive her. Guess what? It also must have sucked for you. Hard, not the a-hole. If the stepsister has changed so much, and she has a better grasp on the hurt she caused OP, then she should respect OP's boundaries and not want to cause further pain. This is about a free holiday. If OP's mum chooses not to come, that is entirely on her. Why can she maintain a relationship with the stepsister when she did something so awful, but she would sacrifice her relationship with her daughter over a funded holiday? This stinks. And if the stepsister has really turned over a new leaf, how come the stepsister hasn't apologized directly? I don't think she's changed. This hit me as well. If Emma has realized that she has wronged the OP, why hasn't she apologized? This sounds like the stepsister is complaining about the OP to others, and possibly about how it isn't fair, rather than taking responsibility or really changing. Not only has she not apologized, but she coincidentally only changed once a free vacation was on the table. Yep, that's exactly what happened. OP needs to start responding to every mention of stepsister with, "I'm sorry you feel that way." Not the a-hole. If she has changed so much, why hasn't she reached out to you herself? If you choose to build a relationship with her, then that can be done at home. She doesn't need a holiday paid for to do that. If your mum puts you in an awkward situation and won't choose to come along, then I would just leave her behind. Apart from it being totally understandable why you don't want her there, I'm also shocked at the sense of entitlement from your mother regarding getting your fiancé to pay for her and her son to go because they couldn't afford it themselves. Yup, hard to forgive someone who hasn't apologized. Why does everyone expect that the first interaction in 6 years would be OP's invitation to an expensive international trip? Absolutely ridiculous. Posted by user FrustratedHusband88, titled, Am I the a-hole for asking my wife to stop bringing her autistic friend over so much? 2 years ago, my wife got talking to a woman online in a random Facebook group. They both noticed they had the same breed of dog and got talking. Turns out we lived 30 minutes from her. I didn't think anything of it, but after 6 months, they decided to meet up. By this point, my wife knew her friend was autistic, and her friend said she'd have to bring her mum with her to meet up until she felt more comfortable. I didn't think anything of the fact that she was autistic and thought they wouldn't meet up again, but I was wrong. Since then, they meet up at least once a week, and at least 4 times a month she comes to our house. When I first met her, it felt like she didn't like me as she wouldn't laugh at jokes, avoided eye contact, and just seemed distant. I told my wife this after her friend had left, and she basically said, "Well, duh, she's autistic, go read up on it." I thought things would get better as time went on, but it hasn't. I feel awkward and uncomfortable the whole time she's in my house, and I honestly don't see what my wife sees in her as a friend. When they go out together, everything has to be pre-planned days in advance. My wife calls ahead to restaurants to ask them if it's possible to turn the music down, and she takes days off work to take her friend to doctor's appointments. When I hear them laughing, it's usually at something that isn't even funny and just odd to laugh at. All I want is my house back. I work hard and want to come home and relax at the end of the day, but she's often here until 10 p.m. on the days that she's over, and even worse, she sleeps over occasionally. I've asked my wife for them to meet at her friend's house instead, but apparently her friend isn't comfortable with anyone but her mum in her home, yet she thinks it's perfectly acceptable to make herself at home in my home. My wife said she's getting sick of my complaining, and I should just go out for a bit, or to my parents' house on those days if it's such a big deal. He's just denying the realities of autism. I don't think he's ever, has he not ever met up and hung out with someone that has autism? That doesn't make any sense. You're being such a douchebag here, OP. That's so insensitive of you. Although I do give props to you for bringing those opinions and thoughts online and at least putting it into words and trying to find a solution to the problem, I can't particularly hate on you for that. It's good that you did reach out and give us your honest truth. Because you can only change when you bring those feelings to light and you're given a different opinion and you see what it's like on the other side. So yes, you're the a-hole in this situation, but it's good that it seems like you're here to take on change. You're the a-hole. It sounds like your wife has a perfectly normal friendship, and you're just annoyed at the minor inconveniences it causes you. Seriously, if it bothers him so much, he can just go into another room and leave them alone. But then he's the one having to compromise, and how is that fair? It's his house after all. Apparently his wife just lives there. OP says, "I feel awkward and uncomfortable the whole time she's in my house." Welcome to how the neurodivergent feel the whole time they're in any building. And that part about her coming over 4 times a month, you mean the whopping 4 days a month max that she comes over? You're the a-hole, dude. Grow up. No kidding. I'm autistic, OP. You know what makes me feel awkward and uncomfortable? People who can't accept that I'm different and seem to find it offensive for some reason. Your wife has a good friend who she gets along well with. Your wife is also showing she's a compassionate and awesome friend in how she's willing to work with her friend to make sure she's comfortable. Also, have you never had a friendship where you just laugh at things that aren't funny just because you're having fun and enjoying the company? If not, that's a shame. It sounds like your wife and her friend get along great and have an awesome friendship. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little jealous. Is it possible maybe you are too? This makes me sad being autistic. I love going to friends' houses because I'm not trying to be normal and can just relax. I have now opened my home to my boyfriend, most of my close friends, and my mum. There's a reason I have like 5 friends, because they just do not care that I'm weird. OP sounds like a complete drag who obviously doesn't understand friendship. Me and my bestie just yesterday were absolutely crying over an alien balloon gone wrong that really shouldn't have been funny enough to have me snorting my dinner out of my nose. I really hope OP comes around, because I know I've felt when people are awkward around me, and it sure as hell gets me nervous. Here's the photo, if you want to see it. Someone posted it. It's an epic meme. Thank you. Posted by user Barkley Sek. What the hell is that name? Titled, "Am I the a-hole for forcing my girlfriend to get an abortion?" I, 24 male, had been dating my girlfriend Amy, 24 female, for 2-ish years. We didn't live together, but were in the same complex. I lived with my old college roommate, and Amy lived with an old girlfriend of mine in high school. Good terms. I had plans on proposing in the near future, and got a ring from her roommate for sizing. Before I could propose, Amy told me she was pregnant. I was happy because we both wanted kids shortly after getting married anyways. I was in a good spot financially, and we both had good jobs. We had a deep talk about it, and she was planning to keep the child and being a family. I went engagement ring shopping the next day, and ordered the ring. 2 or 3 weeks later, she told me she got the abortion because she didn't feel ready and wanted to advance her career first. I was upset, but understood. I was mentally invested in our future family for a few weeks. We had talked about it during this time, but I feel like Amy flipped the switch on me when we could have talked more about her decision. I didn't show any hate towards her, but she could tell I was upset. Some time passed, and she asked me what was wrong, and I told her we could have been a happy family before I left that day. I knew that it was over then. We fizzled out in a few weeks, and I ended it. It really came down to her flipping from keeping the baby to getting the abortion without telling me. A few weeks after it ended, Amy showed up at my door upset at me, saying I forced her into an abortion. Her roommate, / my old girlfriend, had told her about my family's money when she told her about the abortion. In short, my family is wealthy, and I could just not work. I choose to live my life without their money for now. A kind of I want to be my own man thing, but I'm on good terms with them. Amy basically told me that she got the abortion because we weren't financially set. I didn't agree with that at all. Even without my family's money, I do very well for myself. I didn't live a cheap life, and always paid for everything, including international vacations. She also knew my salary. I never told her about my family money because I saw how money affected my siblings' relationships before. I had planned to tell her after the proposal when we talked about wedding costs, and thinking it would be a you can have your dream wedding, not worry about money, do what makes you happy if that's working or being a stay-at-home mum. But Amy just went ahead with the abortion without telling me. If she'd told me she wanted the abortion because of financials, I would have told her right then. But she got it done after weeks about us talking about raising the child together. Amy basically blamed me for the abortion, saying I should have told her about my family money before. I told her about my plan to tell her when I proposed, but she got the abortion after telling me she wanted to keep the baby and there was nothing I could do. She wanted to get back together, but in short, I didn't think it would ever work. So, am I the a-hole for not revealing my family wealth to Amy and forcing her into an abortion? This was 7 years ago now. Just thought I'd throw it out there when I read a similar-ish story. God, that's actually a genuinely hard situation, and it could have gone so many different ways, but it went the worst way possible, it seems. The biggest mistake here was the lack of communication on her end, and the miscommunication, it seems. I don't know why she took that step to abort the baby without telling you. Honestly, it's her right, she's able to do that. It just was the wrong move in this situation, unfortunately, and it toppled the entire relationship. And this isn't at all to say that it was the wrong thing for her to do. Absolutely, for her it was the best thing because she was worried about the future. And in a time of duress, you're going to make decisions, you're going to make them smart, and you're going to do it. I don't know if this is a when someone shows their true face, you believe them situation. I'm not particularly convinced she's in it for the money, just because she realized, oh, I screwed up. I need to fix this mistake. I didn't know why I did this and but the fact that he didn't tell her about the family money straight after she said that they were struggling with financials kind of speaks a bit of a volume about how he perceives the girlfriend. So maybe she was in it for the money. I don't know, that's my outside looking in perspective, and I think he made the right decision overall, and I don't think it's worth going back in to that relationship. So not the a-hole. Your family's wealth is none of her business, especially if you're not participating in the distribution of that wealth. You played no part in her decision to get an abortion, and it's possible that she regrets getting one in general now and is trying to deflect the blame. Edit. Rereading this, it sounds like her interests changed only when she discovered your family was well off. She's a gold digger and you dodged a bullet. Ding ding ding. She didn't explain until hearing about the cash that she missed out on. Not the a-hole. It's not too late to buy her a shovel as a parting gift. You know, for her future gold digging. Jesus, I thought you were going somewhere completely different with that shovel joke. Like, my heart sank midway through that sentence, lol. Not the a-hole. How can you force someone into doing something when you didn't know they were going to do it in the first place? It's BS. Probably wanted him back or wanted the family money by telling them that it's his fault. How could you not tell me you had money? Let's get back together and try for another one. I still love you, baby. The baby wasn't yours and wanted to spare you the pain of raising it, so really I did this all for you because I love you so much. Especially now that I found out how wealthy your family is, but that doesn't really matter to me, I swear. Posted by user throwaway7890072. Titled, Am I the a-hole for prohibiting my mother from seeing my child because she's tricked him into thinking she's his mum? Throw away to avoid anyone recognizing me. I have a now 3-year-old son who was living with my mum, his grandma, for a year while I was getting myself together. For personal reasons, I will not explain why I was away for so long, but I felt I needed to better myself for my son. My mother agreed to take care of him while I was away. I FaceTimed with him whenever I could. Fast forward to last month. I come to my mother's house to pick up my son. He's happy to see me and my mother are talking while he's playing with his dinosaurs. He suddenly looks up to my mother and says, "Mommy, I'm thirsty." I was obviously confused, and asked my mother if she heard him call her mum. She laughed nervously and said that he'd been calling her that for a while. She basically explained that while I was away, she told him that she was his mum and to call her that. I laughed and told her that I wasn't comfortable with that, since she wasn't the one who birthed him. I told her he should know that she's his grandma, not his mum. She got upset and told me that he needed a mother figure while I was gone, and she was just trying to fill that role for him. She said something along the lines of, "I've been his mother for a year now, and you can't change it." We went back and forth until it got to the point where we started raising our voices. She spat out some insults about me being a bad mum for being away for so long, and how she should be his mum because he doesn't need a mum like me. I simply told her that she isn't going to be seeing him anymore because I'm not comfortable with him calling her mum. We gathered his stuff and left after that. She blew up my phone for days, talked some mess to family members, anything she could do to make me look and feel bad. But I refused to forgive her, especially after all that stuff that she said. Am I the a-hole? And for those of you saying that I abandoned him, I didn't. I was too sick to take care of him. That's all I'm gonna say about that. I couldn't be the best mother to him because of my medical issues. I wanted to be there for him. I didn't just dump him on my mother. I feel the need to explain that because people are getting the wrong idea. It was possible for him to visit, but my mum said it would be best if he didn't see me like that, because he'd be too young to understand, and I trusted her, so I didn't allow him to visit. No, I wasn't in a mental hospital or rehab, it was physical health reasons. A lot of you are saying you think I was in rehab because of the way I've worded things in my post. Rather than edit out the original, I'd like to explain that it's probably not the best wording to use for this situation, and I understand that now. What I meant to say was I felt I needed to be in better health for my son. Getting myself together in my head pretty much means getting better and healthier. I apologize for that. This will probably be my last edit. My son is getting a therapist like a lot of you have recommended, and I'm considering working things out with my mother, only because I don't want her fighting for custody. Still unsure though. This is a really, really messy situation, and I don't know if there is a really definite answer that we can get here, but the big sticking point for this one is the mother refusing to change her stance with the son. I know it would be confusing, but he needs to learn the difference as early on as possible. That's my view on it. He needs to change her back to grandmother, and OP needs to go back to being mother, and I think she's doing a disservice to the entire family for continuing to be hard on being a mother. I think OP is going about it the wrong way also, by being so combative, but I don't know what other choice they really have in this situation, and I think everyone does suck here, but it's so hard that I don't know what the solution is. Everyone sucks here. Grandma could have easily clarified to your son what her relationship is, and being a mother figure doesn't mean that she has to be called mum. However, you clearly are aware that you have some issues that you had to work out, and your mum did something big for agreeing to help raise your kid. You are now cutting him off from an important person in his life for the last year, since the two adults can't work out their issues. The two of you need to talk to figure this out and dig into the larger issues. Maybe even with some counseling or outside help. Some kids on their own use that word without being told because they want a mum. Not sure if you have kids, but my stepdaughter calls me mum even though she has a mother who's absent. I am a mother to her, and she's my daughter. I would never tell her to do something she isn't comfortable with. I was actually thinking of including that, like when we all inevitably call a teacher mum at school. OP may need to provide more info about whether or not the son started calling grandma mum spontaneously, or if grandma insisted on being called mum. Worthwhile discussion point to add. I have to wonder what people's responses would be if, say, you were away for a year serving your country, or working long periods traveling to support your son, and your mum pulled this move. People don't think mental illness is a real thing until it's theirs. It's appalling the number of people who jump on the "you're a drug addict," then proceed to invalidate anything else she said. The OP and her son need time and space to recover from her manipulative mum. Even if she was getting over a drug addiction, she took time to better herself so she could be there for her son. I don't understand the amount of people saying everyone sucks here. The secrecy does not imply stigma, it implies secrecy. I hope you're in therapy and your son has someone to talk to too by a professional who deals with children. You were away part of his life, and now you're taking him away from someone who has been raising him for a third of his life. Whether justified or not, the abandonment issues are there. Posted by user Girls Ask Guys Anon. Titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my boyfriend I'm not going to his vacation spot? So I definitely feel like the a-hole, so I need some clarification. I'm 28, female, and I have 2 kids. My boyfriend, 28 male, and I have been together for 4 years, and my kids are not his. Throughout this relationship, I have been included in all of his family functions. I have a really good relationship with them, and I dove in head first because my family lives out of state, and I craved quote-unquote family. My mother and sister, 16 female, moved back to our home state last year and met my boyfriend for the first time. They butt heads almost immediately because both of them think they are right about absolutely everything, even when they are both wrong. So, needless to say, I was only able to see my mother twice while she was here, in between working like crazy and trying to work around schedules, on top of fighting with both my boyfriend and her because they hate each other. It was bloody exhausting. After 8 months, my mum moved away again. So I have a week's vacation coming up, and my boyfriend and I had no plans. I have more than enough money in my savings, and I told him I wanted to drive out to Indiana with my kids to go see my mum for the week. He gave me a sideways glance and didn't say anything. I was dead set on it, though, because I'm going through some crap, and I need my mum, so I started planning. Well, My boyfriend came up to me last night with his phone in hand and starts talking about all of us going to Seattle during my vacation. He lived there up until 2 months prior to us meeting and wants to go back. He's been trying to convince me to uproot my life and move there for several months now, and basically says that our relationship is about compromise, so I should compromise and move. So I reminded him that I'm going to my mother's. He got mad and said that it wasn't set in stone, and that I didn't even bother asking him if he was okay with it. I asked him why he wouldn't be okay with me going to see my mum, knowing I need her, and he said, "It's not even that. You made plans to go on your vacation without me when we barely even see each other now. So you want to take the only week you have off and just ditch me here while you leave? How is that fair?" So I told him he could go with me, and he's like, "No, absolutely not. I'm not staying with your over-opinionated mother for a week." So I said, "I guess it's settled then." He said good, and instantly started showing me pictures of Seattle again. So I turned to him and said, "Just so we're clear, I meant it was settled as in I'm going to see my mother with or without you. I'm not going to Seattle." He called me a fudging a-hole for not taking his feelings into consideration and went to hang out with his brother. Am I the a-hole? This is another one of those sticky situations. I guess both of you guys suck here for not genuinely compromising with each other and finding a solution to this one. I can understand why he's upset, because he feels as though you're not spending as much time with him, and you seem to back that opinion of his and you agree with him. But instead of both of you guys coming to an agreement to spend more time together, you try to shoehorn two different situations that both of you don't want to do together. That's not healthy, that's not a good relationship dynamic, and I don't think that you guys are going about this the right way. Both of you are a-holes for being so stone-headed. Everyone sucks here. You didn't plan a vacation. You decided to use your only vacation time to see a family. That's fine, but don't frame it as "we're going on vacation" and expect him to be thrilled to tag along during your visit with your mother, with whom he clearly does not get along. If you in fact were planning a vacation, he should have been included in the discussion. But it seems like at this point, both of you are trying to push your own agendas on the other under the pretense of a vacation. You are absolutely right. I guess I completely resent the fact that he made it so it was impossible to see my mum when she was here due to his own hard feelings on her, and stripped me and my kids away from any family time we could have gotten, all the while expecting me to up and go at the drop of a hat to go see his. So at that point, I didn't care that he didn't want me to go. It's my mum, and I shouldn't need his permission, especially when I asked his permission while she was here, and he did everything in his power to keep me from her. I do feel bad, I just don't feel bad enough to not go see her, which probably makes me an a-hole. Genuine question, if you feel he was completely in the wrong about the entire thing, why are you guys still together? I'm only asking because from reading the post, I thought your boyfriend didn't want to be around your mum because she was rude to him, but from this comment, it sounds like he was just unreasonably preventing you from seeing your mum. He just strives for control, and he doesn't want to do anything unless it's his decision. For instance, I wanted to bring my kids to a water park and he said no, made some excuses, though I can't remember what. However, 2 days later, he comes walking into the room and was like, "Hey kids, who wants to go to the water park?" It's just that basically everything has to be on his terms. You're going to need a lot of feedback about that being signs of an abusive relationship. Definitely not the a-hole. You may want to reconsider yourself with him if he's claiming a major move like that should be done because compromise. Right? How is her giving in and moving a compromise? There is no compromise in his situation, that's her sacrificing and him getting what he wants. Not the a-hole, but what you're describing is the early stages of an abusive relationship, trying to isolate you, control where you go, and emotionally manipulate you by insisting that you need to ask permission, compromise by giving in and doing what he wants. Basically, this is red flag city. Info. Was your boyfriend involved in deciding to go see your mum, or was it settled before he even got a say? I originally told him I wanted to, and he just looked at me but wouldn't say anything. He turned away from me and started playing on his computer and gave me the cold shoulder for like an hour after. That is when I decided I definitely was going. It was later on decided that he all of a sudden wanted to go to Seattle. I know the dating scene when you're a single mum is pretty rough, but even so, I know you can do better than this guy. He doesn't even seem to have matured emotionally since middle school. Also, it sounds like you have a pretty good relationship with your mum. The fact that they hate each other does not bode well for your future together. Is your mum usually quick to judge your partners harshly, or is this a new thing? If you trust her ability to judge character, trust her now, and don't bring him to Indiana with you. He'll just ruin it, and it sounds like you could use some quality time away from him. Okay, from all that extra information and other people's opinions on this, I think it's clear to me now I'm going to change my consideration to not the a-hole for this one. It does reek of an early abusive relationship popping up and him having major control issues. Posted by user No Needleworker, titled, "Am I the a-hole for forcing my stepfather to call me Sir or Mr. last name since he works for me and I require my other employees to do it? I own my own business, and one of my rules is that my employees have to either call me Sir or use my last name. They are not allowed to call me by my first name. I'm not old by any means, but this was always the rule when I was coming up, and I think it's a good rule, especially since a lot of people in the workforce today don't know how to behave and take advantage of the freedoms they are given. My mother and stepfather came to me recently and asked me if I could find work for my stepfather. I usually don't hire family or friends. It is asking for trouble in my opinion. But I made an exception this time because of their financial situation. I did mention my rule to him when he had orientation, but either he wasn't paying attention or decided not to follow it and ended up calling me by my first name. That didn't bother me because sometimes new employees make mistakes. I politely pulled him aside and reminded him of the rule. He said he understood and it wouldn't happen again, except it did. I gave him another polite reminder, but that didn't work either. That is when I gave him a warning. That still didn't work, so I had a meeting with him and told him point blank that this was becoming a problem, and if he couldn't follow my workplace rules, I would have to fire him. We had an argument about this. He feels disrespected by me since he's older and my stepfather, and doesn't think I should enforce the rule in his case. I told him tough luck, but that's not how it goes. I don't make exceptions, the rules are the rules, and they apply to anyone who works for me. If my wife worked for me, she would follow the same rules. If one of my children did, the story would be the same. As a little backstory, this previously was my dad's business, and before that, my granddad's. When I was in a junior position, I had to follow the rule with them, so I have gone through it all myself. I'm not asking anyone to do something I wouldn't do. He told my mother about our conversation, and she begged me to be more understanding and to show him mercy. Her view is that he is an older man with a lot of pride, and I humiliated him. She thinks it wouldn't hurt to make an exception this one time, but I strongly disagree. If I make an exception for him, the rule loses its meaning, and I would be playing favorites. I told her there would be no exceptions, and financial difficulties or not, if he makes the mistake again, he will be fired. I discussed this with my wife too, and she sided with my mother. She thinks I'm being too much of an authoritarian, possibly to both my stepfather and my employees. But I disagree with her. I treat them fairly and have never received a complaint by anyone who has worked for me. Everything I have done seems fair to me, but my family thinks I am the a-hole. Yeah, I'm just thinking the whole time, this is like Dwight from The Office. It's just like, you will refer to me as Mr. Schrute. Me and the boys back on Schrute Farms, I always refer to my grandfather as Schrute Sr. And yeah, it's just some big old fantasy. I don't get why he wants to be so hard on it like that. He's using his position as leverage over his own family, which I guess, that family was lucky to be hired in the first place, because a lot of people wouldn't hire. But yeah, it's just reeks of entitlement and abuse of power. and I don't like what Opie is doing. I think he's completely an a-hole for doing it, and really, he should just stamp out that behavior and stop. So, you're the a-hole. Not the a-hole for enforcing a company-wide rule. You're the a-hole for making people call you Sir or Mr. Dickbrain, or whatever. If a boss told me that's what the job took, I would keep calling them by their first name. Or if this was at an interview, I would laugh in your face and walk out. You do realize that this is peak arrogance. Like, I have no respect for you, just because you demand it. You suck. Wait, I'm seriously curious. Isn't it normal to call your boss by their last name? Where I'm from, no one would even think about calling their boss by their first name. I mean, sure, no employer ever told me to call them by their last name during an interview, but only because it's totally obvious anyway. I mean, if you greet potential employers at the beginning of the interview, are you using their first name? I'm confused. Not sure where you're from, but in Australia, we call our boss by their first name. We're all equals here. We just have different roles to play in the success of the business. Yep, that's the one. I'm also Australian, and yep, same. I'm considered formal in that I don't call my boss or his boss by their nicknames. It might come off as a little stilted, but as a mid-20s woman, calling men in their 50s and 60s by their nicknames seems weird. Otherwise though, we're a team. We have goals as a team, and my job is to achieve those goals, not stroke their egos. The nickname thing is something I struggle with too. I'm Aussie and 30, and get along with both of my bosses. On internal calls, they often use nicknames, and I'm only recently jumping on the bandwagon, but not often. Mostly because I struggle to call people by any name other than what they are introduced to me as. A lot of people at work call me either Loz or my full name. Still doesn't bother me in the slightest. Oh, name's Mama Loz. That's a sick name. You're the a-hole. Yikes. Just your first paragraph. Cringe. I bet they have all sorts of names for you. Yeah, I stopped reading after the first paragraph. You're the a-hole, definitely. It makes me feel for not just their stepfather, but anyone who comes into contact with them. Posted by user ThrowRA_Sandy. Titled, Am I the a-hole for publicly shaming my boyfriend for his weight? Yes, I know the title sounds bad. When I started dating my boyfriend 2 years ago, he was slim and fit. Now, he is far from that. He weighs about 17 stone, 240 pounds, at 5'10". I'm not very attracted to him at this point, but we stay together because we get along well and we care for each other a lot. We haven't had sex in maybe 4 months, and he doesn't even try anymore. He gained 1.5 stone in quarantine. I'd have sex with him if he lost at least 2 stone, but he can't even be bothered to do that. It's frustrating and embarrassing for me. I'm into fitness, and I want a partner that at least looks somewhat healthy. I know this sounds mean, but his body really disgusts me. I tried to make healthy meals for him, and he eats them, but then he just eats more later. He drinks beer a lot too, which doesn't help. His eating habits are terrible. I know he's extremely insecure and hates how he looks, so I decided I had to play on that. The only way his behavior seems to change is when he is shamed, so I've started bringing up his weight in public because bringing it up in private doesn't seem to do anything. We went out for dinner with friends, and he was going to get some high-calorie dish, and I commented, "But what about your diet?" I brought up the amount of calories in the food and listed off everything else he had eaten that day, in a joking way so that everyone laughed. He laughed along, but I knew he would be hurt, and he ended up choosing a low-calorie option. He later told me how humiliated that made him feel, and said that I made him feel disgusting. I said he wasn't disgusting, but his weight and the amount he eats is, and if he doesn't want to change, I can't force him, but that won't stop me from talking about it. He then said he was trying to lose weight, and I just rolled my eyes because clearly he wasn't. After that, I started commenting on his weight and what he's eating most times we went out, and he became even more ashamed. He tries to hide his body from me now. Last week, he started water fasting, where you don't eat and only drink water, and he has lost weight. So clearly me speaking to him finally worked. I wish I didn't have to do this, but I only did it because I care about his health, and speaking nicely wasn't working. I felt like I had no other option. I know I hurt his self-esteem, but once he loses weight, I will be sure to praise him and say he looks good so he feels better about himself again. Am I the a-hole for doing this? I feel slightly bad, but I know my intentions were good, and I'm pretty sure he will be better off for it. Yes, you're the a-hole for doing this. He's not seeing your intentions, he's seeing your actions, and it's just coming off as very malicious. This is not a healthy relationship dynamic between the both of you, OP, and I think you know that, but you're continuing to do so. Don't know why you're still in the relationship if you continue to torment him, but that's your choice. I wouldn't do this if I were you. You are the a-hole. Edit. Okay, I get it. I'm the most evil person ever. I'm going to apologize to him, but I'm not going to break up with him over this unless he wants to. Mods, can I lock this post? Edit. 21 hours after posting. Okay, this blew up. Not really sure what I can say. Guess I'm the most hated person on this subreddit ever? I know I was wrong to go about things in the way I did. I'll try and get him to diet in a healthier way, and if he gives up on it, I will have to break up with him, because manipulating your partner is bad, even if you did it in their best interest. By the way, don't bother messaging me hate, I won't respond. You're the a-hole. Hugely so. Also, I'm into fitness. No, you aren't. If you were, you wouldn't be pressuring your boyfriend into an unhealthy crash diet. This is about your shallowness, nothing more. You don't care one bit about his health, physical or mental. Yeah, OP is abusing him. Poor dude. Yeah, OP should leave him so the guy can lose some toxic waste. You are not gross, it's just your body is gross. Yikes. The boyfriend is literally starving himself while spiraling into a crater of self-hatred, and OP is celebrating. She tacks on the obligatory health concern line right at the end, having seemingly forgotten her opening paragraph about needing to bone someone's swole. Worst of all, she won't even do the decent thing and dump him so he can find someone who actually loves him. I wish I could reach out through the internet, find this guy, and give him a bear hug. If you happen to find this post, you deserve so much better, dude. Next time, pick a partner who builds you up, not tears you down. And at the end, she says, don't worry, when he starts looking attractive to me again, I'll give him praise and validation. Like she's just training a dog or something. Jesus. You can see how the OP is with the edit. Not really accepting or understanding, just, okay, I get it. Do you, OP? Truly? They say I'm going to apologize to him. He really needs more than this. Understanding, aid, from therapy, doctor's visits, etc. The boyfriend is starving for the OP. But I'm not going to break up with him over this unless he wants to. Not even recognizing the damage? Is the boyfriend in a position to be healthy enough to break it off? No. The OP pressures and manipulates. The OP is horrible, and I hope the boyfriend can realize this. Reading this post could help more than whatever apology is cobbled together. OP, you're the a-hole, and somehow, do you truly care? Posted by user DaisyChained89. Titled, Am I the a-hole? Telling my parents to pay me back my college tuition if they want a relationship. I was raised by parents who believed, religiously and just culturally, in rigid gender roles. Dad should work, Mum should stay home with the kids, and I'm the only girl and have 3 brothers. Because of their expectation, I'd stay home with kids. They never valued my education, educational achievements, or emphasized things beyond domestic skills. I'm the second youngest, and by the time I was in high school, my 2 older brothers had gone to the college of their choice, with my parents fully covering tuition, books, an off-campus apartment, and other living expenses. They eventually did the same for my younger brother. I was told I wasn't allowed to apply for college. I did so in secret, and got accepted with a partial scholarship. I didn't tell them I was moving out until a week before I left, with essentially nothing but what a few friends gave to me that their parents bought them for college. I took engineering and had to work, take on debt, and struggle. My parents and I have barely spoken for years. I'm married now and expecting our first child, and they asked to meet up. We met at a park, and they said they were sorry if they caused me pain, but would like a relationship now. I asked them specifically what they were sorry for. They wouldn't elaborate and just said they wanted to move forward. I said that wasn't sufficient. In the end, I said they could prove they were sorry by forwarding me the $100,000 my degree and college expenses were, just like they did for my brothers. My mum burst into tears, my dad said I wasn't being serious, and I just left. Since then, I've been getting calls from my brothers telling me I'm being immature and hurtful, and I don't think so at all. So, am I the a-hole? No, that is heartbreaking what you've gone through. They won't admit to you what they did wrong. They're not genuinely sorry. They just want you to forgive them and move forward, and they're not going to give you any reparations for what they've done? That's just unacceptable. The abuse continues in this instance, and I don't blame you for cutting them off. The brothers are brainwashed, it seems, by these parents, and it doesn't seem like they actually care about the effects these parents have had on you. Screw them, screw the parents, screw that family. They need more time to think about what they've done. Godspeed, OP. Not the a-hole. Helen Dang Nation says, not the a-hole. Hi from another engineer from a family filled with rage that she has all the talent that the boy was never up to. As far as I can see, your answer to them was perfect. It was very fair, and if they have fixed their appalling bigotry issues, they would be falling all over themselves begging you to take the money. Since they clearly have not fixed their bigotry, you don't want them around your child. Never ever poison children by allowing bigots in their presence, no exceptions, that includes your bigoted brothers. Edited to add, I have a bachelor's, master's, and doctorate, all in engineering. You have no idea how angry this makes them. Hopefully, you will too, and we can all watch the bigots faint from sheer rage together. Bwahahaha. Exactly. They aren't sorry for how they treated OP, they just want to be able to have access to their grandkid. So they can abuse it if it's a girl, and turn it into a bigot no matter what. I wouldn't go that far. Many parents want to dote on their grandkids. They don't necessarily have a nefarious plan to brainwash them, but they probably have some sort of particular desire to see OP be a mother, and perhaps even a fear that she won't be a good one because of her independent streak. And while they don't want to turn her into a bigot, they will certainly try to impose their own notion of gender roles onto her. There is a whole fascinating world out there of abusive parents who have been cut off by their children, who believe they have something called grandparents' rights to be in their grandkids' lives. I can understand the notion that having grandchildren that are turned against you, that you never have the option to meet, can be extremely painful. But the forums are filled with narcissists unable to acknowledge their own bad behavior. I don't know, maybe we're saying the same thing. I just try to have some degree of sympathy for even the worst people in these situations and try to understand it from their perspective. Even if they are deluded and dangerous, there was a story a while ago about a grandmother who didn't believe her grandchild really had a peanut allergy. I still think it's useful to understand their motivations and that they too live in their self-created worlds where they are the good guys. While they might not go in with the intent of abusing more children, history more than likely repeats itself because that's what abusers do with defenseless little kids, especially narcissistic grandparents. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Posted by user Bad Quilter Aunt, titled, Am I the a-hole for making my nephew a dinosaur quilt? My sister is deeply Christian. My sister and I were not raised religious. She went off to uni at 18 and became a Christian when she started dating another Christian. Basically, the point is she doesn't believe anymore that dinosaurs exist. She's now married to a man who isn't religious, which is a sore point for her that he won't convert. I have a niece, 9, and a nephew, 6. A couple of weeks ago, while watching them, my nephew mentioned his quilt that I made him was getting too short. So I told them both to go into my craft room and pick some fabrics they each want on a quilt. I could easily open a fabric shop with all the fabric I have, so they had a rare time picking out the fabrics. My niece went for some space and galaxy themed, and my nephew picked out some dinosaur fabrics. I thought nothing of it and got to work. Today I went over with their quilts, excited to see their reaction. They were so happy until my sister noticed my nephew's quilt and asked, "What the hell?" I was confused, and she quickly went on a rant about her knowing dinosaurs don't exist, and how dare I try to brainwash her child like that. I told her he picked out the fabric himself. I genuinely didn't make the connection, and I would let him pick more fabric for a different quilt. By this point, my nephew was crying, saying he doesn't want a different quilt, so my sister called my brother-in-law, telling him to set me straight. He basically shrugged and asked what the big deal was. It's only fabric. Their son likes the fabric, it's his son too, and he believes in dinosaurs, so he should get a say on the quilt too if it's such a big deal. My parents are now involved, and despite not being religious, they are ticked at me for what I've done. No one but my brother-in-law believes it was a genuine mistake or oversight, and they think I've set out to mock my sister's beliefs. I honestly didn't think I'd have to vet my nephew's fabric choices with my sister, as all the fabric they had access to was kid-friendly prints. The stuff with swearing, etc. is kept elsewhere, as they like going into my craft room. So no, I don't think Opie is the a-hole for this one. I think the sister is just being way overly sensitive. I can see why the sister believes that Opie is an a-hole. She's not judging Opie based on her intents in this one, as discussed in that last story. She just sees it as a personal attack against her and her faith. I can respect that. I don't think it's right though. I think she needs to see it for what it is, like the husband is seeing it for what it is. And she needs to get over herself. It's just some dinosaurs on some fabric. This is not an attack on her. This is not an attack on her kids and their beliefs. Opie is not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. If she's so sure dinosaurs aren't real, what's the problem? Would she be ticked if a unicorn fabric was picked? Or dragons? Not the a-hole. Exactly. I hate to be that person, but unicorns did exist. Everyone knows they just didn't make it onto the ark. What most people don't know is that Noah actually barred them entry due to their political alliances with the Fae. Really makes you think, that one. Or Sinus the Hedgehog or Pikachu, not the a-hole. When you ask your mum for the new Sonic game for Christmas and this is what she brings home from the bargain bin. Stourbees says, "Lamau, I don't believe in dragons, but my son has dragon sheets. Not the a-hole for an array of reasons. The simplest being that you did something nice by making the quilt and letting the child pick out the fabric. It must take a lot of effort to not believe in dinosaurs." She seriously left university a different person. We were so surprised she married someone who isn't on the same page as her when it comes to religion. The kids are quite confused when it comes to religion, as mum's telling them one thing and dad another. Posted by user Spacey Panda C, titled, "Am I the a-hole for refusing to drive my mum anywhere because she refused to teach me how to drive?" When I was a kid, my mum refused to teach me how to drive. She did teach my older brother. Throughout my time in college, I constantly asked her to teach me, and she always gave me excuses. "My car's too expensive. I don't want you to crash it. I'm a bad passenger. You need more courses from an instructor." I completed those. After a while, I gave up. In my 20s, I didn't bother getting my license because I had to pay for tuition. I couldn't afford all the costs that were associated with a car like gas, monthly payments, insurance, and on top of all of that, driving lessons. So I spent my 20s not knowing how to drive. I'm in my 30s now, and I got a car and paid for lessons a couple of years ago. My mum has been asking me to drive her places from time to time, and I just don't think it's fair. She called me out on it today, and I said I'd never drive her because she had the ability to teach me, but chose not to when I was young. She said I'm being selfish, and it wasn't her responsibility to teach me. It's something adults just learn. Yet, she taught my brother. So I put my foot down and said stop asking. I had to hire instructors so she can call a taxi. I think fair is fair in this situation. I think she intentionally put so many roadblocks in front of OP that OP just gave up. And that is genuine gaslighting there, saying it wasn't her responsibility, saying that OP is selfish, yet the brother got taught how to drive. I think that's unacceptable behavior by the mum, and she knows exactly what she's doing. She can take this big L that OP is giving them, and she can suck it up. OP is not the a-hole. She should ask your brother. Why does she need that anyway? Can't she drive anymore? I really don't know. She can drive as far as I'm aware. We never had a good relationship, so it feels like she's only reaching out when she wants something. It's control, dude. She needs to periodically pop into your life and show you who is boss. But you're the boss now. Exactly. She could call an Uber. But it's so much more fun to inconvenience her daughter. Not the a-hole. In most countries, driving is something parents teach their kids to do while they are still living at home, and she chose not to do this because she found it inconvenient. Well, she made her bed, now she can lie in it. Damn, I wish I lived in these most countries. For most people here, a driving school teacher charges at around £20 a lesson. I spent about £400 on that. I'm sorry? I've only lived here in the US, where mum and dad take you on a few spins around an empty Walmart parking lot, and then send you on your way on the freeway with your teenage friends, all of whom text you while you're driving. You could have saved a ton. And you passed your test just by doing that? I changed my mind. I never want to drive in the US. No wonder I saw so many car accidents while I was there for 2 weeks. Not the a-hole. Adults just learn how to drive. I'm sorry, what? There's a lot more to driving a car than just flipping it into gear and pressing the gas pedal, and it's 100% her responsibility to teach her children how to be responsible, successful adults, and teaching them how to drive a car is one of them. Posted by user Am I the A-hole Throwaway 982. Titled, Am I the A-hole for refusing to sell back the portion of the property I bought out from my sister? I, 32 female, and sister, 35 female, inherited this apartment from our grandmother. We owned it 50-50. It wasn't in a very nice part of town, a bit run down. When I was 28, my sister ran into a bit of financial trouble. I helped her as much as I could, but it just wasn't feasible for me to keep giving her cash in the long term. Her credit was shot, so she couldn't get a loan either. I ended up buying out her share of the apartment at market rate. I got the apartment, and her financial troubles were eased. In the past 4 years, that neighborhood has gone through a lot of changes. Increased government funding, better schools, etc. has made crime go down and driven property prices up. So the value of the apartment has risen substantially, compared to when I bought her out. This has created a lot of conflict in our relationship. She wants me to either pay her the difference between what I paid for the apartment back then and its value now, or B, let her buy back her 50%, but at the price I bought her out 4 years ago, or C, pay her half of the rent I get from tenants. I refused. I don't want to go through that again. Due to the pandemic, the government is paying me my rent so that tenants don't have to pay and landlords can continue to pay their mortgages. We have been bickering back and forth over it, and it's honestly very exhausting. This is just another one of those situations where money changes people, and it is very unfortunate that the sister is so money-oriented that she believes she's entitled to half of the apartment now that it's doing so well. Too bad, so sad for the sister. She sold her rights. You morally and legally do not owe her anything. She's just trying to chance you for money. And I guess that's a her problem, not a you problem, OP. It doesn't sound like she's particularly struggling from the way you put it, so continue on your way, you're not the a-hole. If she had sold it to a stranger, would she expect the same options now? Of course not, but this is family, which means all logic and legalities go out the window, and OP must act like a doormat and screw themselves financially, not the a-hole. When the situations arise, it seems like the question is how much the OP values their relationship with their family members. While completely not the a-hole, if OP values the relationship with their sister, value with a $sign, not subjective emotional value, some mutually beneficial compromise might be in order. Depending on the profit from their ownership stake, OP could offer to put a 25% of the revenue from the apartment in a donor-advised fund or family scholarship to benefit any potential children that either they or their sister have. That goes both ways though. Just asking? No, actually, practically demanding that she pay up will leave a sour taste in OP's mouth and negatively affect the relationship. What about the sister asking for the free money? The OP took the risk and financial burden. Let's say she lost her ass on it, which is just as likely to have happened. Would the sister be so kind to give her the difference in losses to keep it even? I mean, what a ridiculous entitled expectation from the sister on this one. Not the a-hole, she just has regrets and wants some of that cheddar. Yes, exactly this. If the property loses value, she would probably say that it was a good thing that she got out, and wouldn't even think about helping out OP for the sake of evenness. I split my house with my ex after we divorced. For 7 years, I did all the work of prepping it for tenants, finding tenants, going over to the house to fix things, paying the mortgage when there were no tenants, and then I just moved back in and took care of the house by myself financially. We'd only lived in it together for 3 years before we had to move, for military. He wanted to sell after owning the house for 5, to which, in hindsight, I should have bought him out at market value. When we finally sold, he wanted half the money, even though he had done none of the work to hold on to it until the value doubled. We finally agreed on a 60-40 split, even though I'd put in over 70% of the finances and work. I see the same thing here. She got out before it could be a liability and for her own personal gain. Let you do all the hard work, because renting is definitely not easy, and then wants to come back in and take equity out of your investment. Is she gonna want half if and when you sell as well? Don't do it. Don't let someone manipulate you. Posted by user doot titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my roommate's girlfriend that I won't wear more clothing in my own home just because she's uncomfortable? I, 24 female, live with 2 roommates, Carrie and Ben. Carrie has been staying with her family for a while, so it's just been Ben and me. Since Carrie has been gone, Ben's girlfriend Allie has been basically living with us. We live in Arizona, where it's usually extremely hot. Recently, we've had trouble with our air conditioning, so it's been pretty miserably hot in the house. I work from home now, and most days I either wear my pajamas or my workout clothes. To give an example of what my pajamas look like, they pretty much look like what this model is wearing, except with a longer tank top. I also don't wear a bra when I'm home, because screw that. Yesterday, Ben was at work, and I was working in the living room wearing my pajamas and no bra, and Allie came in and asked if she could talk to me. She asked if I could please change into something a little less revealing before Ben got home, because it makes both him and her uncomfortable with the lack of clothing that I wear around the house. I told her that if it makes Ben so uncomfortable, he can tell me himself, but that I still won't change what I'm going to wear in my own home, because it's not like I'm naked. Plus, it's hot as hell. I reminded Allie that she doesn't technically live here, and it's not her place to dictate what I wear in my own home. I also added that it's not my fault if she's uncomfortable by what I wear. Allie told me that since it's just Ben and me living here at the moment, that I should be more respectful and put on more clothes and wear a bra because she's uncomfortable, and that it probably makes Ben uncomfortable too. I told her sorry, but it's not really my problem. Am I the a-hole for refusing to put on more clothes in miserable heat? I say, Ali can get over herself, and you're not an a-hole for this one. I can see why both of them have, a problem with it, but I would have a problem with them judging me in my own home when I'm just trying to work and do my own thing. Judging by what OP has given us as a model, I think that's more than acceptable clothing to be wearing in the house, and they can just ignore OP if they'd like. They don't make the rules around here. The air conditioner isn't working, and it's Arizona heat. That's a triple whammy, that's a triple no thank you from me. So if those two want her to wear something less revealing, they can go ahead and fix the aircon first, I say. Not the a-hole OP. And I'm willing to bet Ben never actually complained. She waited until he wasn't there and switched up her story. To be honest, she just sounds jealous. Guaranteed, Carrie brought it up to Ben, and he just said, "Oh yeah, totally, I'm way uncomfortable," just to stay out of trouble. Not the a-hole, I'm not even sure Ben said anything at all. Ali went from, "it makes him and her uncomfortable," to, "she's uncomfortable and it probably makes Ben uncomfortable too," in a single conversation. I would bet money Ben has absolutely no clue that that conversation was happening. And her discomfort almost certainly stems from insecurities. I find it pretty unlikely that this is the first time OP has been wearing short clothes in the house. What are the chances that someone in Arizona doesn't spend most of the summer going around in shorts and a tank top? Or the first time Ben has seen her in PJs? And he has seemingly been fine so far. Suddenly his girlfriend moves in, and it's an issue? Definitely a her problem, and she really should have more trust in her boyfriend. Not the a-hole, and it would be completely reasonable if you tell Ben that you are not comfortable having guests in the apartment without the person they are visiting. This is a great point. Why is Ali even hanging out when Ben isn't there? She needs to start paying rent, or they should get their own place. Yeah, I just thought about this. Imagine being left alone in someone's apartment, and then having the audacity to approach their roommates and tell them what to do. So messed up. Not the a-hole. It's hot and you aren't naked. Plus, you're in your own home. She doesn't live there. If Ben were to talk to you personally, I might consider it, but it sounds more like a case of jealous girlfriend to me. Posted by user ThrowRA titled, "Am I the a-hole for asking my girlfriend, 23 female, to consider quitting a job that bothers me? Before anyone gets upset, I am not insisting that she quits this job, and if she chooses not to, that is her prerogative. I just asked her to consider doing so. My girlfriend Anna is currently a law student, her second degree after qualifying in a language degree. During the summer, she works for a family friend named David. She calls her job a personal assistant, but it seems much broader than that. She is his translator and interpreter. She goes to events with business partners as his date or partner, and when clients visit David at home or go to dinner with him, she entertains their wives and makes drinks or entertains or cooks, etc. When David hosts events, Anna runs them, wrangling guests and arranging seat plans and so on. In essence, it often appears that she's kind of a hired wife. I've never encountered a job of this kind before. David is mid-30s and unmarried. Anna has alluded to him hiring escorts when they're abroad, and I've never met him, but this made me feel very uneasy. For the whole summer, she is with him. There is a room in his London house that she calls her study, with a sofa that she sleeps on, and they regularly travel abroad together. I never see her during this time. She claims to work from 7 a.m. till 11 p.m. 6 days a week, and says David does not like her to use her phone during work hours. She also said David does not like her to eat during work hours either, but he counts her going to the gym as a valid use of work hours. On top of this are business expenses, such as David buying her clothes. Even when she's at university, she is frequently getting phone calls from him at all hours of the night, which she says is due to the time difference. 2 nights ago, we had a big fight over this job. I told her she looked like she'd lost a lot of weight, and she just brushed it off and said that she had a stressful job. I said it seemed like a very weird set of duties, and she got very defensive. It had started out as a normal job, but that she had taken on more duties as David had started to depend on her. How much can he depend on her when she's still at university for a third of the year? She let slip during this conversation David was funding her law degree and paying her a stipend even when she was not working, and I told her that I found the whole arrangement to be very suspicious, asking if she wasn't sure it wasn't something sketchy or that she wasn't being exploited in some way. Not saying in what way. I told her she might want to reconsider a job which basically turned her into a non-sexual escort, and that I was uncomfortable with the whole thing. She shut me down and told me that I was being a controlling a-hole, and that her job was her own, and that even suggesting she consider what a weird occupation she had was a massive dick move on my part. But me, I genuinely feel like I'm going crazy anytime I try to explain her job to others, and even when I think about it myself. FAQ. 1. I've known her for 5 years, dating for 3. We lived together while studying with 4 other roommates. She has had this job since before we started dating, and David was always her quirky boss that she would have anecdotes about. 2. David knows her family and is close to her older cousins. That is from what she has mentioned. Anna and David are both Russian. His family is much wealthier than hers, if I understand correctly. Her family knows that she has this job and think it is great. She includes this work on her CV. She's on the books to some degree, as she gets her weekly salary into her accounts and bonuses in cash, from what I understand. The clothes she gets are nice but not flashy, just normal work clothes like blouses and pants or neat dresses. I do not know if they are designer. She has the occasional very nice cocktail dress from an event that she either sells for cash or keeps for other events. I do not know if it's from a high-end label. 4. He is not paying for American law school. It's a UK undergraduate degree in law. Still expensive, but not as bad as Yanks think it is. About £27,000 total, if I remember correctly. 5. There is a possibility mentioned elsewhere that she may be misrepresenting the eating rules due to her history of disordered eating. This is something I intend to discuss with her. And 6. You can stop telling me she's likely having sex with David. There are 800 plus comments here saying something similar, and it isn't particularly relevant to the discussion. Mini update. We spoke briefly on the phone this morning before she started work. She apologized for flipping out, saying that she was stressed and unwell. I said I wanted to bring her and David out for lunch to clear up this misunderstanding and apologize for being controlling. She went off the phone to speak to someone and came back on and said David wanted to have me for dinner, presumably not in the Hannibal sense. She said she would get back to me by the end of the day with a day and time that works. So if she doesn't, well, I don't know. I guess I'm gonna go not the a-hole for this situation here. This is a really weird work situation she's got herself into. It does, have hints of a non-escort style of job. It kind of makes me uncomfortable listening to it because she's out with him so much. He's basically paying her to be an emotional partner for him. And the disordered eating is also very concerning, but that's a personal issue and that's not really my business. I don't know what OP is doing, but asking her to maybe, chill with this job would be a step in the right direction, in my opinion. Not the a-hole. I worked a job that was very different in nature, but had a boss that was similarly controlling. Unfortunately, I was so under the control of my boss that I didn't even realize how unhealthy my life had become. I'm saying this to point out that your girlfriend may not realize the danger that she is in. My response when people tried to talk to me about the job was to become defensive, and sounds like she's the same. I truly hope you're able to help her get out of the situation. I wish I had the clarity to understand the concerns that my loved ones expressed at the time. Again, not the a-hole, you were right to be concerned. Not the a-hole. Don't even bother to ask her to quit. She'll just flip it on you as if you were controlling and unreasonable, and you aren't. Sad to say this, but I'm guessing if you dump her for this job, she'll bounce pretty quick, which will show you that you've dodged a massive bullet. Dump yesterday. Update: am I the a-hole for asking my girlfriend to consider quitting a job that bothers me? So, long story short, Anna and I talked about taking a break from our relationship due to the demands of her work, but we are still together. First things first, I told her about the post, and she found it hilarious that so many commenters thought that she was good looking enough to be a sugar baby and said to say thanks. I've apologized for overreacting and telling her to quit her job, and she's apologized a ton for how little time she's had for me and our relationship, and how she dismissed my concerns. At the suggestion of some comments here, she let me run some of her texts with David through Google Translate, although I could tell she felt a bit insecure about the lack of trust that implied, but she agreed in black and white her relationship with David seemed sketchy. They were all friendly and mostly business related, some that read like a good friends complaining or teasing each other. He sent her a few photos of him in suits, her replies were all style related, and she sent him a few photos of food, e.g. while they were on dates. My name cropped up a few times in a very natural way. I went for dinner with her and David a few weeks ago. This mainly confirmed what I had suspected and hoped. First, that their arrangements has a lot to do with their families and a sense of looking out for one another. When I say David has photos of Anna in his house that might seem like a red flag, but they were not girlfriend pictures, there was one of her graduation with her father, and one from a trip to Russia where she is with his grandfather, and lots of photos of her brothers as well. Second, that David is on some kind of spectrum that means Anna helps him with social aspects of business. I don't mean that in an insulting way at all, but that was just the impression I got. He was very polite to me and told me he was glad to meet me at last, and that he had been instructed to relay information back to Anna's family about whether or not they should approve of me. Third, like a lot of people suggested, Anna's interpretation of the rules had a lot to do with her ED. She isn't allowed to eat in front of clients, but she's self-conscious about eating in front of David as well, so she ends up not eating at all during work. She's promised to go back to therapy about this issue, and I got the impression David wasn't happy she had told me a lie about her working conditions. Not really sure what else I can add. We're gonna stay together. She has promised to renegotiate some of her terms with David to try and have a bit more of a normal existence during the summer, and David sent me a nice watch with a little message attached thanking me for coming to dinner. Anna has joked that this was payment to keep me happy and technically makes me her pimp. So we'll see. TLDR, both of us consider ourselves the a-hole. David seems to be neither an a-hole nor banging my girlfriend, and we are still together. Well, that's a cute little update. I never commented on your original post, mainly because I had nothing else to add to everyone else. It's good you've gotten everything sorted out. It's great she's going back to therapy, and hopefully everything moving forward will be more comfortable. And fingers crossed you get the family's vote approval. Just don't forget to keep the tracks of communication open between yourself and Anna, but also David, probably via Anna. Good luck moving forward and upward. So, I have autism. If I was wealthy enough and had a job like David, I would absolutely want to hire someone like Anna to help grease social wheels for me. Like in those rhetorical questions where you win the lottery but can't save or invest, my answer was always to get a personal assistant so I never had to make a phone call for things like appointments or whatever. It sounds like David had a similar desire and seems to have screwed it up for you and Anna. His autism and Anna's eating disorder just seemed to spectacularly collide. I'm sorry that this happened, and I hope you can all communicate and figure it out. In addition to this, David probably would never have thought twice about it being weird, since at least to my kids, most things that NT folks do is weird AF to them. Posted by user Clothes in Drawers. Titled, Am I the a-hole for throwing my kids' clothes onto the floor when they don't fold their clothes neatly? So I've always been kind of a neat freak mum the entire time my kids have been alive. I always expect their rooms to be clean, and I check their drawers, closets, and storage bins to make sure they don't just shove stuff in there to make the room appear clean. The kids, 16, 13, 9, and 6, are all responsible for putting away their laundry, and my oldest two are responsible for folding their own clothes, which bothers me because my 13-year-old folds his clothes in a way that bothers me. He rolls them up instead of properly folding them. Ever since the kids have been home and have more free time, I'm more strict about the way they put their clothes away. I expect their clothes to be folded a certain way and organized in a certain way in their drawers. I read from a mummy blogger a few years ago that when her kids' drawers weren't organized, she would make a mess for them to organize the right way. I considered it for a few years, but now that the kids are old enough, I think it is the way to go for us. I haven't had to do this until yesterday. I walked into my 16-year-old's room while she was FaceTiming her boyfriend, and I saw her basket of laundry that needed to be folded. And, out of curiosity, opened her drawers and see that she has shoved her clothes in there. I started making a mess, and she screamed, "Mom, why?" And I told her she knew why. After that, I walked out of her room. She explained to her boyfriend what I did, and he says, "Your mum's fudging crazy, bruh." And I peek my head into the room, give her a look, and she ends the call with him and breaks down crying. I told my husband what happened, and he told me, "I knew you were going to do that, but I didn't know you would actually follow through." This morning, I woke up to a note on my daughter's door saying, "Until mum can get mental help, I'm staying with my aunt, sister's name." I texted her, no response. I tried contacting my sister, who said that she has no plans to return until I get mental help and stop being such a controlling tramp. My husband, sister, and mum are all against me in this, which hurts. I don't think it harmed my daughter. It benefits her and helps her stay organized. And I think you're living in a world of delusion, OP, and I don't think you realize the damage that you're doing by forcing these rules on your kids when there's obvious blowback from them. Especially this one who has abandoned the household until you get help. I feel like that's a pretty, clear sign that things aren't working well in that household, and yet you continue your antics. You're the problem, OP. It seems like you've got a problem with looking yourself in the mirror every day and seeing yourself for who you are, so you're the a-hole. Update: am I the a-hole for throwing my kids' clothes onto the floor when they don't fold them neatly? Almost 2 months ago, I made a post on here about me throwing my daughter's clothes onto the drawer when they weren't folded neatly. Well, that post really blew up, and people on Twitter also chimed in. Well, the night I made the post, I was still in serious denial. I replied to some comments, and my denial was perfectly clear for everyone to see. The day after, I read some more comments and messages that I received from everyone. I resorted to the guest room and cried for hours. I read some people tell me that their mums were similar to me and they no longer have relationships with them. That was truly my worst fear. I seriously love my kids more than anything on this planet, even if my actions don't always show it. I booked a virtual appointment with a psychologist who diagnosed me with OCD and let me know she would help me. I have since had about 8 sessions with her, and she's been a big help. Of course, I still have a long way to go, but I've been noticing some improvements already. As for my daughter, she stayed at my sister's house and came home a few days later after I told her that there would be major improvements made in my behavior. I sat all the kids down and told them that I have the resources to not be such an overbearing a-hole to them anymore. One thing I do want to address is the fact that I was usually controlling with my kids, but the incident I wrote about was the one that sent me and my daughter over the edge. Me and her are on much better terms, and I want to thank Reddit for waking me the hell up to become a better mum and wife. I also want to apologize to anyone who I brought back bad memories to. I want to have relationships with my children until we all grow old, and I know so many of you guys don't have that, which breaks my heart. But also hearing your stories gave me a big change of heart, and helping me fix my relationships and become a better person. I just want to add that the pandemic and a ton of other current events are very triggering to OCD. I was diagnosed in 2015 and have had resources to help me. In 2019, I felt very good about where I was with my OCD, but by mid-March 2020, I was in a very dark place. Please hold yourself accountable, but also forgive yourself when things get hard. As a child whose parents had mental health struggles that made my childhood difficult to nightmarish, I also just want to thank you for being honest with yourself and being able to keep growing. I'm so proud of you. Soprano23 says, I wish my mum could have the same wake-up call that you had. The issues I have with her are different, but they still boil down to her being controlling and doing things that hurt our relationship, but she won't take responsibility for them because she doesn't think anything is wrong. At best, she once told me that she doesn't want to see a therapist because she's afraid of finding out something is wrong with her. Thank you so much for taking criticism to heart, no matter how difficult it was, for the sake of your kids. It may take a while to mend things, but you're already well on your way, and your family will be all the better for it. My mum was like this when I was a kid. We now no longer speak due to her overbearing, controlling behavior, and for many other reasons that she refused to get help for, and still to this day won't. I wish my mum had took it upon herself to recognize how much damage she was doing, and make moves to amend it in the way that you have, OP, as we may still have a relationship if she had. It's too late for us, but not for you and your daughter. Good luck. Posted by user dcolic19, titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my parents they are irresponsible for getting pregnant for the 6th time? I am female 19, and I am my parents' second child. I have 3 brothers, 21, 13, and 7, and a sister 16. We grew up poor, and our parents were often dependent on financial help from relatives, friends, etc. for raising us. This is because even though my dad has a mediocre job, and my mum doesn't work, they just kept on popping out one kid after another. My parents are very religious, and believe that children are a gift from God. Personally, I think that's total BS. My parents' reproductive choices wouldn't bother me if it hadn't caused mine and my siblings' lives to turn to crap. While growing up, we never had new clothes or toys. We had to accept handouts from family members who were better off. We never went out or did anything fun. Now, my older brother and I have managed to get into good colleges and are looking forward to a future that would be better than our parents' lives. He and I have been home for quite a while due to the pandemic's lockdown. Yesterday, my parents called all 5 of us into the living room. Mum said she had great news. The smile that was forming on my face dies a quick death when she said, "We're pregnant!" I lost my temper. I asked them how they could be so stupid and irresponsible. Do they not have enough financial troubles already that they have to bring in another mouth to feed? My older brother tried to calm me down, but I was livid. After a lifetime of scarcity because of my parents' stupidity, they still had not learned their lesson. I asked them how they planned to provide for the kid. My dad told me I would have to give up the money our great uncle had left me. He had left all 5 of us some money, which only we could access when we turned 18. I said, hell no, that money would help pay for my college expenses. He called me selfish for not being there for family. I told them if they couldn't provide for the kid, they should get an abortion. My mum started crying and called me a heartless monster. Dad told me he was disgusted with me, and I told them there was no way I was going to pay for their stupidity. Since then, the atmosphere in our house has been very tense. So tell me, am I the a-hole? Edits, I forgot to add that I told them that the only thing I'd help pay for is an abortion. FYI, I'm not American, and abortion is completely legal in my country. Edit 2, I want to thank all of you for your kind and helpful comments. Some of you asked if my money is safe. Yes, it is. My parents can't get it without my written consent, which they are not going to get. It was suggested that I talk to my younger sister. I'm planning to do that, and I'm going to do my best to ensure that she doesn't fall for any guilt tripping by my parents. To those of you who suggested that my comments were cruel, I see where you're coming from, but my biggest worry is the way my parents' reckless lifestyle is going to affect my younger siblings. And they're not doing this kid any favors by bringing it into a life of poverty. Once again, thank you very much. Sorry to you guys that believe in pro-life, but I agree with OP in this one here. I respect the decisions of pro-life, but it sounds like they are not having a good existence in that household, and it's completely due to the parents' actions. The parents chose to have that many kids. They chose to give the kids a low-quality upbringing. I would not do that to my potential kids. I would not bring a child into this world knowing that it's going to be raised in worse conditions than I had, and it was going to be severely disadvantaged because of that. I think the OP's parents are doing a disservice to the entire family, and I think that they're the a-hole, and OP is not the a-hole for their actions and their words, as cruel as they may have been. Not the a-hole. Was your delivery the best? Probably not, but you have every right to be frustrated and to give your very valid opinion. I would ensure your parents have no access to your inheritance, etc. I agree about the money. If OP quits college, she may be locked in a less desirable financial future. I hope she stays in school. I'm sure they'll still have their handouts when the older kids get good jobs though. I'd almost argue that their intent in saying that she'd have to give up her money, they'll try it on all the others as well. Who expects a child to pay for their siblings? Also, these children are spaced out a bit too far for them not to be planned. Looks like Mum and Dad tried for 2 years for the first half of the bunch and 5 years for the second, when they realized how much work it was. Honestly, they want their children to keep raising their other children forever, keep the family close or whatever. Even though she ain't a girl, saying she's infertile, and you can forget the rubber, this is still a baby trap. OP and her siblings need to get the hell out as soon as possible with that money from their uncle. I'm not so sure about the unplanned idea. Like the OP, I'm not American, and in my country, most parents qualify for a monthly payout from the government to help with childcare, even if the child isn't in daycare. Here, you get the max payout if you're low income and the child is under 7 years old. After the child hits school, the payout drops. And at 18, the payout stops. I've known people who pop out a kid every few years to play the system. Not the a-hole. I was about to say live and let live, etc., until the bit about them expecting you to pay for the child. Not okay. They want a kid, they can pay for it. If God has blessed them with a baby, maybe God can sort out the expenses. Update. Am I the a-hole for telling my parents they are irresponsible for getting pregnant for the 6th time? Quite a lot has happened since I originally posted about this. I decided to get some family members involved so they could talk some sense into my parents. I called my mum's maternal cousin. She's one of my favorite people. When I told her that Mum and Dad were having another kid, she reacted with, "What? Again?" I told her everything and how they expected me to hand over my inheritance, and she said that she was going to speak to my parents and told me not to sign over anything. I promised her I wouldn't. Of course I won't. I also called 2 of my first cousins, one of whom is an accountant, so she could explain to my parents how much of a financial liability this baby is going to be, and try to convince them to either abort or give it up for adoption. I moved out of my parents' home a few days ago. I was only going to stay here until lockdown was relaxed, but I just can't bear to listen to my mum's nagging about how this baby is a blessing, and I want to kill it. I've moved into a friend's basement for a minimal rent. My mum's cousin paid them a visit about a week ago and tried to tell them they weren't doing this child any favors by bringing it into a life of poverty. My mum was very rude to my aunt and told her that a woman who chose to remain barren will never understand a mother's love. My aunt never wanted kids, nor had any. Yeah, she can go to hell for saying that. My dad told her to get out. Aunt told me there was nothing she could do, but she did try, and I didn't blame her. The cousin tried to explain the economic impact this kid would have, and my mum cried about how everyone was trying to take away her baby. WTF. The intervention didn't do jack diddly squat, so now I've decided to cut contact with my parents. I just can't watch my family slide further and further into a hellhole. I'll be maintaining contact with my sister, 16, just to make sure my parents can't brainwash her. Otherwise, I'm done with these people. Edit. I want to thank all of you for your support. I think I should add that my brother will maintain contact with my parents. I'm actually glad that he will, because if they prevent my sister from talking to me, my brother can act as a link between me and her. Mars 1040 says, "You had every right in involving your extended family in this, considering your parents kept asking for help from your relatives. I wouldn't be surprised if your relatives cut your parents off for asking for money for their 6th child. And I expect your younger siblings would also be unwilling to give up their inheritance when they get older, considering they grew up poor. Keep in contact with your siblings and let them know that they don't have to give your parents any of their money. The relatives who stood by my side and actually saw the logic in my arguments are in the minority. Most of them think this is wonderful news. Ugh, my mum is one of 13 children. It's a big part of why I'm converting away from Catholicism. The mentality around children, even when there's no certain way to feed them, is so toxic. Good for you for standing up to them. My mum did her own equivalent. When she said she wanted to go to college, her dad said there were cheaper ways to find a husband, and they kicked her out when she decided to stop giving her father her paycheck to pay for her school. And they tried to spend her scholarship money on groceries and cigarettes. And she has an amazing life now, and wouldn't change a thing. You have done the hardest part, it'll only get better from here. Honestly, cutting ties with my parents was the easiest part. I'm just worried about my sister. She'll be the next one to get access to her inheritance, and they are going to try to get her to give it up. The best you can do is set an example and stay in her life. And in a worst case scenario, be there for her after your parents manage to take advantage of her. Sometimes, the biggest difference between getting stuck in your parents' cycle and overcoming it is knowing there is an alternative. You have become an example to your sister that there is an alternative. That's the most anyone can do, and you should be proud of yourself. Alright guys, that's where I'm going to end today's video. I really do hope you enjoyed it, and maybe even learned something that you didn't know before. If you haven't already, please do feel free to click that like button, as it really does help me in the YouTube algorithm. And if you haven't already and you love today's video, please feel free to subscribe. I would love it a lot. Also, big shout out to all my Patreon members and channel subscribers. You guys are all up on the screen right now. I love you. I love your faces. Also, I love seeing you guys all chatting down below in the comments. It brightens my day to see the stories that you guys share and just the kind words you guys always have for my videos, as well as everyone else in the videos. I love you too. But honestly, your ongoing support means the world to me, and I just love it so much that you guys are able to support a career for myself that I invest so much time into. And you guys honestly motivate me to work harder each and every day to put more love into the videos for you guys. If you guys have watched this far in the video and you haven't already subscribed on Patreon or become a channel member, that's cool, you don't have to, but there are links down below. You can donate any amount of money, pledge that any month, cancel whenever. I'm completely cool with it. It's just there for you to support me if you'd like to go the extra mile. And I'll go the extra mile for you guys by putting out new amazing content every single day. With that said guys, I really hope you have a good day, night, sleep, bath, time at work, whatever you're up to today. This has been Markee. I'll see you in the next amazing video. Bye.